Winter Frost by R.D. Wingfield. Read by David Jason. He had the photographs spread out on the table in front of him and was savouring them once again. Behind him, the local television news was droning away unheeded. Vicky Stewart. He froze. God, heart hammering. He swung round. There on the screen was her picture. The little girl, 8 years old, smiling, showing the gap in her teeth. Denton police are holding a man in connection with the disappearance of 8-year-old Vicky Stewart, who has not been seen since she left Denton Junior School for her home some 9 weeks ago. According to a spokesman for Denton CID, the man, who is in his early 40s, is helping the police with their inquiries, and no charges have yet been made. The picture on the TV screen was not a good one. Nowhere as clear and sharp as the photographs on the table before him, where Vicky was staring at the camera, her terror shone in sharp focus. A tapping at the front door. He frowned. He told her to use the back way if anyone saw her coming. He scooped up the photographs and stuffed them in the sideboard drawer, turning the key. Excitement made him sweat. He rubbed the palms of his hands down his trouser legs and then opened the door. "You look frozen," he said. "Come on in. I've got the fire on. We'll soon warm you up." She was 7 years old, a few months younger than the other girl. The bitter January wind butted the rusty closed sign and swung it on the chain which guarded the entrance to the abandoned petrol station. Closed for over 18 months, it still reeked of stale diesel fuel and old rubber. Parked on the forecourt where the petrol pumps once stood were 2 police cars and a mud-splattered Ford Sierra. Detective Inspector Jack Frost, a cigarette dangling from his lips, stamped his feet. This was a bloody waste of time. He had hoped to spend the rest of his shift in his office, the radiator going full blast while he fiddled his monthly expenses. His divisional commander, Superintendent Mullet, was away at head office, so no chance of him bursting in when the ink on the month-old petrol receipt was still wet. Then later, feet up in the restroom, he'd planned to watch a video of the big fight. What should have been a night of sheer bliss went right up the Swanee when that slimy bastard, Reginald Todd, marched into the station to confess to the killing of Vicky Stewart. Todd was a minor child molester, exposing himself in front of kids, but now he was claiming he had gone up into the big time and that he had raped and killed Vicky and hidden her body in this old service station. He couldn't remember exactly where. Frost watched the uniforms manhandle an enormous treadless tyre. They wouldn't find anything. That time-wasting lying bastard Todd was a pathetic nobody, revelling in a chance to be the centre of attention. Frost shivered. Mrs. Stewart, a small bundle of nervous energy, was convinced that her 8-year-old would suddenly walk into the house hungry for her tea, and she talked a lot so she wouldn't have to listen to other people telling her things that she didn't want to hear. He had tried to get her to accept that after 9 weeks there could be little hope, but she wouldn't listen. "Of course she's coming back, Inspector. I know it, I just know it. You're going to find her any day now, Inspector." Frost took one last drag at his cigarette. At least he told himself this time he wouldn't be breaking the bad news. Reggie Todd, sitting on the bunk in the police cell, noisily slurping down the cup of tea, was a thin, scrawny individual. A rattling of keys from outside and the cell door crashed open. Detective Inspector Frost stood there, his eyes blazing. Todd leapt to his feet, blurting out apologies before Frost could get a single word out. "I'm sorry, Inspector. I'm truly sorry. I must have dreamt it. It was so vivid I thought it was real." "You'll feel a vivid pain in the ghoulies in a minute," snapped Frost. "And it will be real." "I deserve it, Mr. Frost, but please, I hate violence." "You didn't seem to hate it when you were telling us what you did to the kid. You were dribbling with excitement." Todd hung his head. Frost's lip curled with disgust. You will now make another statement, withdrawing your phony confession, and you will then get the hell out of here and hope and pray that I don't bump into you on a dark night." He turned on his heels and marched out of the cell. Station Sergeant Bill Wells looked up as Frost pushed through the swing doors into the lobby. "You should charge him with wasting police time." "He's wasted so much police time, I haven't got time to charge him for wasting it," said Frost. He poked a cigarette in his mouth. "I've got my car expenses to do. If anything important happens, like Lord Lucan walking in to give himself up, pass it over to Inspector Maud." He looked round. "Where is she, by the way?" Wells gave a disdainful sniff. Detective Sergeant Liz Maud, posted to Denton a couple of months ago, had been made up to the temporary rank of inspector while he, Bill Wells, after 17 years in the force, was still only a sergeant. "Oh, that jumped-up little cow," Frost chuckled to himself. He loved winding the sergeant up. He tut-tutted reprovingly. "That's no way to speak about your superior officer, Sergeant." "Superior? She's done half the time I have, and she's made up to temporary inspector. What's she got that I haven't?" Big tits," said Frost. Wells jabbed a finger. "You've hit the nail on the head there, Jack. It's sex discrimination in reverse." "Oh, I've never tried it in reverse," said Frost. "But where is she?" "With a prisoner, a cab driver. He picked this woman up and instead of taking her home, took her down a side street and raped her." "Bloody hell," tutted Frost. "I hope she didn't leave him a tip." His office was in darkness. He expected to find D.C. Morgan, newly posted from Lexington Division, hard at work with the crime figures, but the office was empty, and the papers hadn't been touched since he'd left. Frost charged out into the corridor, almost bumping into P.C. Collier. "Where's D.C. Morgan?" In the canteen," said Collier. "Go up and drag the sod out. We don't pay him to drink bloody tea, we pay him to fiddle the crime figures." His voice died. Over Collier's shoulder he could see into the open door of No. 2 interview room, where a grim-faced woman in her late 50s sat bolt upright. She caught his gaze and snapped her head away to stare pointedly at the far wall. Frost pulled Collier to one side. "What's old Mother Beatty doing here?" "Waiting for a statement to be typed," said Collier. "She's the rape victim." "In her bloody dreams," snorted Frost. "Where's D.I. Maud?" Acting Detective Inspector Liz Maud, 26 years old, stared at the man on the other side of the table who was lolling back in his chair, a look of amused contempt on his face. "Let's go over it again from when you picked the woman up from the railway station." The man gave a resigned shrug. "The old cow phones for a cab. I picked her up, took her to where she wanted to go, dropped her off, and I drove away." "The woman tells a different story," said Liz Maud. "She claims you drove round to a side street and you raped her." "Do me a favour," protested the man. "I'm bleeding fussy who I rape. No, if it was you, darling." "If it was me," Liz snapped, "you wouldn't have anything left to rape with. You make a habit of assaulting female passengers, don't you?" He expelled breath in exasperation. "If you're referring to that slag of a prostitute, then we're talking ancient bloody history." "9 months ago," said Liz. "Recent bloody history, if you ask me." She looked up in annoyance as the door creaked open and Frost walked in. She turned to the microphone. "For the benefit of the tape, Detective Inspector Frost has entered the interview room." She wiped dark hair back from her forehead and glowered at him. "Yes, Inspector?" He beckoned her over to the door. "A quick word." Her lips tightened. "Later, I'm in the middle of an interview." "Now," said Frost. Eyes smouldering, she followed him out, closing the door firmly behind her. "I don't think you're going to make this one stick, love." "Did you check the victim's form?" She frowned. What was the fool on about? A victim? Old Mother Beatty. According to her, her drawers have been up and down more times than Tower Bridge. She's alleged rape and assault at least 12 times over the past 2 years. All wishful thinking. She also reckons she gets heavy-breathing phone calls, peeping Toms when she strips off in the scullery and is being stalked. He offered her the long computer printout. Liz flicked through it, lips tightening angrily. She sounded so genuine, I believed her. She believes herself half the time, said Frost. Liz glowered at the interview room door. I could wring her bloody neck. Oh, don't be too hard on the poor cow. She's never had it. She's probably never going to get it, so she has to imagine she's had it. Never had it? Are you telling me she's a virgin? So the doctor said the last 3 times she was raped. I'll go and sweet-talk the old cow, said Frost. It was then he noticed how tired and drawn she looked. Are you all right, love? She glared at him. Of course I'm all right. Why shouldn't I be? You look a bit peaky. He was sorry he had started this. Just tired. Fed up, having to waste my time on phony rape charges. Her eyes shot daggers down the corridor in the direction of the lobby and Sergeant Bill Wells. You'd have thought our station sergeant would have had the decency to have told me. She spun on her heels and went back into the interview room. Doreen Beatty stared stone-faced at him as he entered the other interview room. I want nothing to do with you, Inspector, thank you very much. I'm definitely pressing charges, and there is no way you're going to talk me out of it. Frost tossed the withdrawal form over to Bill Wells. She's dropped the charges. Oh, how the hell did you get her to do that? Frost gave a modest smile. I told her he couldn't have raped her as he got his dick shot off in the Gulf War. He switched off the grin. Why didn't you tell Liz Maud the old biddy was in the Guinness Book of Records for multiple virgin rapes? Wells sniffed disdainfully. Oh, not my place to tell my superior officers what to do. Running footsteps from the stairs to the canteen, and Frost's temporary assistant, D.C. Taffy Morgan, burst through the doors into the lobby. Morgan, a curly-haired little Welshman in his late 30s, had sorrowful eyes and a heart-melting, whipped puppy expression he could turn on at the drop of a hat, which Frost found irritating, but women seemed to find irresistible. Just popped up for a quick cup of tea, Gov, he said in his oozing with sincerity sing-song Welsh voice. I've nearly finished those figures. Nearly finished, said Frost. You haven't touched the bloody thing since I went out. Let's get one thing straight, Taffy. There's only room for one lazy bastard in this station, and that's going to be me, understand? Morgan hung his head sheepishly. Sorry, Gov. The desk phone rang. I'll get someone over there right away, said Wells, scribbling an address down on his pad as he hung up. Another pillowcase burglary, Jack. Shall I give it to Morgan? No, I'll take it. He jerked a thumb to Taffy. On your way, Lloyd George. Police Superintendent Mullet tapped his fingers happily on the steering wheel of his Rover as he drove back from county headquarters. An excellent meeting under the chairmanship of the Chief Constable, in which Denton Division came out very well, he thought. It was a meeting for all divisional commanders to discuss ways of maintaining an efficient force in the face of the draconian budget cuts that had been forced upon them. The Chief Constable, quite brilliantly, thought Mullet, had suggested that more work with less manpower could be achieved by increased interdivisional cooperation, with men being seconded from division to division as and when required. Some of the other officers had expressed their disquiet, but Mullet had committed 10 of his officers to a joint drugs operation. He was now basking in the euphoria of the Chief Constable's comments. It is the Denton spirit that's wanted throughout the county, gentlemen. Example to you all. The sour glances fired at him by the rest of the meeting made it clear he was in the minority. They would still be in the pub shaking their heads doubtfully over their beers and telling each other that it might look good on paper, but it just wouldn't work in practice. However, thought Mullet, if it did fail, it would be the doubting Thomases who got the blame, not the wholeheartedly approving Denton Divisional Commander, determined to make a go of it. As he turned into the market square, his mobile phone rang. Superintendent Harry Conley from Fenwick Division. "A spot of interdivisional cooperation wanted, Stan," said Conley. "Hope you can help." Mullet smirked happily. A chance to show what Denton could do. "Certainly, Harry. Fire away." The burglary was at flat 305 on the third floor of the apartment building, where an angry-looking woman opened the door to Frost's ring and beckoned him in. "The more the bloody merrier," she said bitterly. "No one here when he robs us can't move for bleeding police when it's all over." Frost grunted his sympathy. Two uniformed men, Jordan and Sims, were already in the flat. Sims questioning an irate man who was slumped in an armchair. "First bleeding night we go out together for ages," he was moaning, "and this flaming happens." P.C. Jordan briefed Frost. "Mr. and Mrs. Plummer went out just before 8 o'clock to see the film at the premiere, got back quarter of an hour ago to find they'd been burgled." "Any sign of forced entry?" "No." Jordan took him over to the front door. "The letterbox is in line with the latch. He probably hooked a piece of wire through and opened it that way." Frost nodded his grudging admiration. "He's a clever bastard. Let's have a look at the conjugal nest." He followed Jordan into the bedroom and saw exactly what he expected. One of the pillows, taken from near the double bed's headboard, had been dumped halfway down in the centre of the powder-blue quilt. "Reminds me of my honeymoon," grunted Frost. Jordan grinned. "A professional job. Straight in the bedroom and in and out in a couple of seconds." "Still reminds me of my honeymoon," said Frost. Jordan suppressed a snigger as the husband and wife came in. Crime victims rarely saw the funny side of things. "Look!" shrieked the woman. "Not content with pinching my jewellery, he's taken the bleeding pillowcase." "He always does," Frost told her. "It's his trademark. He uses the pillowcase to bag up the loot. He's done about 8 blocks of flats over the past 3 weeks." "And you still haven't caught the bastard? Brilliant," snarled the man. "As soon as someone is observant enough to feed us with a description, we might have something to go on," said Frost. "But so far no one's come up with anything." The clock in the market square was chiming 11 as Frost nosed his Ford into the station car park. It had been a sod of a night so far. 2 more burglaries reported and investigated in the flats, making 4 in all. Frost had switched his radio off, just in case some bright spark thought he was itching for more crimes to investigate. At that time of night, the station car park should have been almost empty, but a large yellow and green motor coach was slewed across most of the parking spaces, and he had to leave his Ford at the entrance. As he scrunched across the car park, the sound of drunken singing bellowed from inside the building. As he pushed open the rear doors, the noise hit him like a punch in the face. Frost scuttled down to the lobby and cautiously peeked inside. Drunks, men and youths, were sprawled all over the place. One man, eyes glazed, was performing a sinuous dance with much pelvic thrusting to music only he could hear. Another, egged on by the cheers of his mates, was standing on one of the benches performing a striptease and was down to his bulging Y-fronts. In the corner, a sad-faced individual was quietly and copiously being sick. Red-faced and bellowing, Sergeant Wells was adding to the cacophony. "Shut up, all of you! Bloody shut up!" "What the hell is going on?" asked Frost. "I thought I told Mullet not to bring his Rotary Club mates here anymore." "Don't talk to me about flaming Mullet," moaned Wells. "This is all down to him, a coach load of football hooligans, just what I flaming well needed." He took one of Frost's cigarettes. "You should see what those animals have done in the toilets. You could float the Titanic on a sea of vomit and urine. There's over 60 of them. I haven't got anywhere to put them. Bloody bleeding Mullet." "How does our beloved divisional commander come into it?" asked Frost, pushing away a drunk who was trying to put his arms round his neck. "I'm already spoken for, mate. This lot's been up to town for the big match. I expect most of them were too pissed to see it. And then they get the driver to stop at the all-night off licence just outside Fenwick. They charge in, grab everything they can carry, then belt out without paying. The manager and 2 of his staff try to stop them, and they get beaten up for their trouble." "Boyish high spirits," murmured Frost. "But it's Fenwick Division's problem. Tell me something I don't bleeding know. By the time the Fenwick area car turns up, they've all jammed into one of the coaches, left the driver behind and gone speeding off up the motorway. So Fenwick now wants other divisions to come to their rescue, stop the coach and hold the drunken sods until they can pick 'em up. All the other divisional commanders are boozing away somewhere. They don't want all the bleeding aggro, so they ask Joe Soap Mullet. 'We'll stop it,' he says. 'Denton will rise to the occasion, as always.' So now we're stuck with the sods. Mullet's mates must be laughing their bloody heads off." "Still," grunted Frost, "it's a fine example of interdepartmental cooperation. Mr. Mullet will be delighted." "Then Mr. Bleeding Mullet can come round with a bucket and help swab up the mess." He gaped and pointed. "Look at that bastard! He's peeing on the floor." As Wells dashed over to stop the man, Frost beat a hasty retreat. Morgan sat, lips moving silently, as he transferred figures from a stack of files to the large return that County sent out monthly to waste everyone's time. Opposite him, Frost sat staring at his car expense claim. He found the bundle of blank petrol receipt forms he had accumulated and passed one over to Morgan. "Make this one out for 17 gallons. "Your car doesn't hold 17 gallons, Gov." "So I spilt some. Just do it." Useless in many ways, nobody forged a better petrol receipt than Morgan, who scribbled off the receipt, then dragged a tall, unsteady stack of files over towards him. Frost closed his eyes and waited for the inevitable to happen. A splatter of files falling all over the floor, and then the muttered, "Damn," from Morgan. "Mind you don't drop 'em," murmured Frost, carefully changing a 7 to a 9. Morgan scooped up the files. A photograph from one of them fluttered to the floor. He retrieved it, shaking his head in disgust. Frost took a look. Nasty. One of Inspector Allen's old cases. The photograph was of a naked woman on her back in long grass, mouth distorted by a tight gag, eyes open and bulging. "Linda Roberts," said Frost. "A prostitute, 26 years old. Gagged, tied down by her wrists and ankles, her stomach burnt with a cigarette and raped and suffocated." Morgan shuddered and stuffed the photograph back in the folder. "Did we get the bloke who did it?" Frost shook his head. "Not a sniff." The office door opened, letting in a solid blast of noise from the lobby and a perspiring Sergeant Wells. "Where's Wonder Woman?" Frost looked up. "I haven't seen her for some time." "Oh, tasty bit of stuff, that Liz Maud," observed Morgan. "You can sense hidden fires." "You'll feel hidden fires if she kicks you up the arse," said Frost. "She's already spoken for, mate, so don't try anything on." There had been a smouldering affair between Liz and D.C. Burton, which seemed to have cooled off of late. Sergeant Wells frowned. "What's this?" He was looking at the petrol receipt Frost had slapped in his hand. Alter that 5 to an 8. Wells snatched up a pen and made a quick alteration. Frost frowned. "You're a lousy forger, Bill. No wonder you haven't got on in the force." He flashed a sly wink across to Morgan, then settled back to listen to the sergeant's knee-jerk reaction. "The reason I haven't got on in the force," replied Wells peevishly, "is because that bastard Mullet blocks my promotion application at every turn." He stopped, dead in mid-splutter, his eyes widening in dismay as he stared out of the window into the car park. "Shit," he croaked. "What's he doing here at this time of night?" Frost twisted his head round to see what Wells was staring at. A blue Rover was coasting towards the divisional commander's designated parking space, which was now blocked by the football supporters' coach. They watched, dumbstruck, as the car was manoeuvred into a less prestigious position. Mullet got out, glared at the offending coach, and then strode purposefully into the station, looking for someone to blame. Superintendent Mullet, back ramrod straight, sat drumming his fingers on the satin mahogany surface of his desk in his wood-panelled office, which Frost called the old log cabin. No parking space. The station like a bear garden, and the crime statistics return he had expected to find in his in-tray was not there. A tap at the door, which opened to let in a blast of hysterical laughter from the lobby and a worried-looking Sergeant Wells. "You wanted me, sir?" "What's going on out there, Sergeant? A drunken orgy and my parking space, my clearly marked parking space, blocked. I was forced to park elsewhere." We didn't think you was coming back tonight, sir." A curt chop of the hand sliced him short. "That is my parking space, whether I am here or not. Do I make myself clear?" "Perfectly clear, sir," mumbled Wells. "Sorry, sir." Mullet leant back. "I presume there is some sort of explanation?" "It's the coachload of drunks you asked us to detain on behalf of Fenwick Division, sir. Interdivisional cooperation." "Don't use interdivisional cooperation as an excuse for sloppiness, Sergeant. Why are they still here? Surely you realise we were only holding them for collection. I want them out." "Sir," protested Wells, "Fenwick seem in no hurry to collect them." He smiled hopefully. "I was wondering if you might have a word with their divisional commander on our behalf." Mullet gave his superior smile. "That would be an admission of your own failure, Sergeant, and as someone pressing for promotion, I'm sure that is the last thing that you would want." "Yes, sir," seethed Wells. "Anything else, sir?" "There is one thing," beamed Mullet. "Rustle me up a cup of coffee. I'm parched." "Working on them this minute, Super," said Frost, hanging up quickly. He returned his attention to Wells, who was telling Frost what a bastard Mullet was. "What flaming figures is a silly sod talking about?" "The unsolved crime return. He's got to take him to the county with him in the morning. He sent you a memo." "He knows I don't read bloody memos," Frost called across to Morgan. "Any chance you'll finish them tonight, Taffy?" "Well, as long as you don't have to be accurate, Gov." "Statistics don't have to be accurate," said Frost. "Just give me something to keep him quiet." The internal phone rang again. "You'll have them in 10 minutes, Super," said Frost. "Just checking them for accuracy." What?" I'll tell him." He put his hand again over the mouthpiece and looked up at Wells. "Mr. Mullet said, would you hurry up with his coffee, and he'd like some custard creams." Wells exploded. "He can get stuffed. What the hell does he think I'm running here, a bloody cat?" Frost took his hand from the mouthpiece. "The sergeant suggests you should get stuffed, sir." Wells went as white as a sheet, until he realised Frost was speaking into a dead phone. You bastard, Jack! You frightened the life out of me!" Frost beamed. The outside phone rang. "Fenwick Division for Sergeant Wells." As Wells listened, his face grew redder. "Tomorrow?" he shrieked. "No damn fear! You pick 'em up tonight! I haven't got room! And you too, mate!" He slammed down the phone. "Everything all right?" asked Frost, innocently. "No, it flaming well isn't. They haven't got anyone available to pick 'em up tonight, so they want us to hang on to them till the morning." A crashing sound and a drunken cheer from the lobby made him grit his teeth. "They're wrecking the place. What am I going to do with them?" Bung 'em back in the coach, suggested Frost. Then they can pee and puke to their heart's content, and Fenwick can have the pleasure of shoveling it out when they collect them tomorrow. Wells' face lit up. That, Jack, is genius. Pure genius. Liz Maud swung her car into the high street. The illuminated open sign outside the all-night chemist's flared red in her windscreen as she stopped the car on the opposite side of the road. Carefully checking there was no one to see her, she dashed across the road and entered the shop. The pregnancy kit, small enough to fit snugly in her handbag, cost £11.90. The explosive roar of the coach engine bursting into life and urgent shouts from the car park sent Jack Frost charging down the corridor. Then came the sound of metal grinding against metal. He reached the rear entrance just in time to see the coach, its jeering passengers, giving the V sign, weaving an erratic path to the exit, chased ineffectively by Collier, Sims and Jordan. "They've driven off in the bloody coach!" Wells shrilled, staring accusingly at Frost, whose idea it was in the first place. Frost glared back at him. "Didn't you think to check who had the flaming key?" Giving up the chase and sucking air into spent lungs, Jordan and Sims made their way to the area car. "We'll soon head 'em off, Sarge." "No, you bloody won't," bellowed Wells. "Let the next division have the pleasure of catching the sods. Chase 'em until they reach our boundary, then get a puncture and radio that you've lost them." He was grinning broadly at this happy outcome when the grin froze solid on his face. "Look," he croaked, pointing at Mullet's blue Rover. It was now clear what the sound of metal grinding against metal had been. The rear wing was crumpled and the rear passenger door punched in. He could barely get the words out. "Look what they've done to his motor." Frost winced. "Perhaps he won't notice." "Won't notice?" shrieked Wells. "Of course he'll bloody notice!" Even before they reached the lobby, they could hear the internal phone shrilling angrily. Wells stared at it. "It's bloody Mullet." "What shall I tell him?" "Go on the offensive," suggested Frost. "Ask him why he hasn't made you up to an inspector." Mullet was in the car park examining what those drunken hooligans had done to his Rover. It was in no state to be driven to county tomorrow. He'd be the laughingstock. Frost shuffled out of the station and came over to him. The same scruffy Mac, the same tired scarf. Hadn't the man anything else to wear? "Nasty," said Frost, nodding at the damage. "Yes," agreed Mullet through clenched teeth. "Must be hard to say no to a drink at these county meetings," muttered Frost, bending to take a closer look. "Your best bet is to say it was parked and some drunken sod ran into it." "That's exactly what did happen," snapped Mullet. "Good for you," nodded Frost approvingly. "I almost believed it myself, and I can always see through a lie." Frost looked at his watch. 3:15. Mullet had gone. He had the station to himself. An Indian takeaway, a handful of Mullet's fags from the hospitality box, and the recording of the big fight on the telly in the restroom. Things could be worse. "I'm sorry, Gov," mumbled Morgan. "I don't know how it happened." "It happened, you Welsh nit," snarled Frost, "because you recorded the wrong flaming channel. We're all sitting there like a load of prats, expecting the big fight, and what are we watching? The flaming singing nuns in the sound of bloody music." Morgan hung his head in shame. "Go and get me a mug of tea and a bacon sandwich. If you turn up with cocoa and a fairy cake, you're sacked." By 3:15 the next morning, things were worse. "Just had a call from a motorist inspector," Bill Wells reported. "Reckons he's found a woman's body." "Bumholes," moaned Frost. "I could have done without this." "Where?" "In the undergrowth by the old Denton Road near the turn-off." "That's near the old service station where we were looking for the kid." What was he doing there? Stopped off for a pee. Said he nearly weed all over her. Sounded shattered. Said she was naked with blood all over her. I was all eager when you reached the naked bit, grunted Frost. Gone off her now. Is the motorist waiting for us? No, said he didn't want to get involved. Jordan and Sims are at the location. Right, said Frost. We're on our way. The metal sign in front of the deserted petrol station was clanging madly as the bitter wind soared across the forecourt. Frost shivered and wound his scarf tighter as he surveyed the desolate area of scrubland. Over here, Inspector! Jordan was calling urgently, the beam from his torch soaring skywards like a searchlight. Frost squelched through the long, wet grass, Morgan hard on his heels. In the distance was the glow of sodium lamps and constant throb of traffic from the new road. Jordan's torch flashed down on the body, which was silvery white in the moonlight. She lay half hidden behind a clump of bushes, a girl in her early 20s, sightless eyes staring up into the night sky, the mascara on her lashes running down her cheeks. There were charred burn marks on her stomach and deep, blooded grooves etched into her wrists and ankles. Sims stared at the face. I know her, Inspector. Angela Masters. She's one of the Toms who hang out around the Tenwood area. Frost touched the flesh, stone cold and hard. He didn't need a photograph to compare the burn marks on the stomach with the earlier victim, Linda Roberts. Identical, he muttered. The bright blue marquee protecting the body from the elements flapped and cracked in the wind. As Harding and the forensic team poked about in the grass, Frost shivered and rubbed his hands together. Come on, bloody Drysdale. Headlights painted the sides of the marquee orange, and the purr of an expensive car engine could just about be heard above the scream of the wind. The pathologist had arrived. Drysdale, followed by his blonde secretary, squeezed through the flap of the marquee, his expression souring at the sight of Inspector Frost. He should have guessed it would be him. Frost's cases always seemed to involve bodies in appalling weather conditions in the middle of the night. He nodded curtly. Frost waved a hand to the body. All yours, Doc. Drysdale's lips tightened at the word Doc. Another prostitute? Yes, Doc. The pathologist bent over the body and nodded his recognition. Had one like this a couple of months ago. One of Inspector Allen's cases, if I recall. He knelt on the plastic sheet covering the grass and peered at the burns and the wounds on the stomach. Exactly the same. She's been gagged. You see where the cord bit into her mouth. Yeah, agreed Frost. The bastard who did this didn't want her screams to disturb the fun of his cigarette stubbing. Drysdale snapped his fingers as an order to his secretary to provide him with surgical gloves, which he slipped on for a brief internal examination. Sexual activity took place shortly before death. From the bruising around the thighs, I'd say she resisted it. Oh, I wouldn't expect her to welcome the bastard with open legs, said Frost. DNA sample? Drysdale shook his head. He seems to have used a condom. He straightened up. Can we turn her over, please? Frost nodded to the two uniformed men to do this. The girl's white back and buttocks were marked with a criss-cross pattern of blooded wheals and cuts and mottled with yellowing bruises. Buttocks and back beaten with a thin cane, exactly like the other girl. As before, I'd say you're looking for some kind of sexual pervert. Well, that lets the vicar off the hook, grunted Frost. Cause and time of death? Cause, suffocation, probably a pillow held over the face. Time of death? Shrugged. 24, 48 hours. Peeled off the surgical gloves. I'll do the post-mortem tomorrow, 11 o'clock. With a jerk of his head for his secretary to follow, he marched back to the Rolls-Royce. Frost stuck a cigarette in his mouth and watched as the body was lifted into a cheap coffin by the two undertaker's men, one of whom shuddered as they lifted her. "Someone's given her a right going over." "Yeah, she wouldn't answer our questions," grunted Frost. Frost pinned up the photograph of Angela Masters on the wall of the murder incident room and waited while Morgan handed out copies. "I'm briefing you now so you can go off home for some kip and then go straight out tomorrow morning knocking up toms. We need to know if they've had any kinky clients who want to tie them up and welt them with a cane. When did they last see Angela Masters? Did anyone see her go off with a punter?" He turned to the pinboard. "She was beaten and used to stub out fags in exactly the same way as Linda Roberts 8 weeks ago. Warn the girls they should only go with customers they know. This bloke did it once. He liked it and he did it again. We're no longer looking for a punter who went too far. We're now looking for a serial killer." "Right. Off you go." At 9:10 a.m, the swing doors banged open and Morgan charged in, a hand held to his jaw. "Sorry I'm late, Gov. Got a tooth giving me jip. Oh, do you know the name of a good dentist?" "There are no good dentists," said Frost. "They're all sadistic bastards. Tie a bit of string to it with a brick on the end and drop it out of the window." "But, Gov—" Frost held up his hand. "I'll hear your lies in a minute, Taffy. I've got someone to see." Superintendent Mullet's lips tightened at the tap on his door. Even Frost's knocking had a slovenly air to it. He began to say, "Come in," but was forestalled as Frost slouched in and dropped, unbidden, into the visitor's chair, a cigarette with a length of ash threatening to fall any minute, drooping from his mouth. "You wanted to see me, Super?" "Yes." Mullet hastily slid the ashtray across, but was just too late to stop the ash from dropping on the carpet. "That wretched Inspector Maud," snapped, "had the damn cheek to come in here this morning demanding to be allowed a few days off. She said she had to have an urgent minor operation at a private clinic, but wouldn't tell me what it was about. Said it was personal woman stuff. Do you know what it's about?" Frost shook his head. "Perhaps she's having her breasts enlarged," he suggested. Mullet frowned. "Surely they're large enough already." "Well, you'd know more about that than me, Super," muttered Frost. "I haven't really studied them like you." Mullet flushed a deep red. "I haven't studied them. Some things you can't help noticing. Anyway, she's off for a few days, which leaves us even more short-handed." "Oh, get some of our men back from County, then." "No, I want County to see that we can manage no matter how short-staffed we are. We'll all have to be that much more efficient." Frost stood up and moved to the door. "As long as you don't mind the overtime bill going up." "No way," said Mullet firmly, remembering what the chief constable had said at the meeting. "That is the easy way out." But he was talking to a closed door. Bill Wells, filling in his overtime claim form on the front desk, grunted with annoyance as a woman in her mid-30s, uncombed, straw-blonde hair, a cigarette dangling from her lips, barged through the doors and dumped a plastic carrier bag on the floor in front of the desk. "Can I help you, madam?" "You bloody better. My little girl's gone missing." Wells kept his expression fixed. Here was one of those "I pay my rate so you'd better bloody jump to it" brigade. He pulled the cap from his pen. "If you could let me have some details." Collier, who should have been here, was out with D.C. Morgan, scavenging the local rubbish tip on a job for Jack Frost. "Let's try and keep it calm, shall we, madam?" "Calm?" she shrieked. "Some bleeding pervert's got my kid and you want me to keep calm?" "The quicker I get the details down, the quicker we can start looking for her. Your name and address, please, madam." "Mary Brewer, 2 Rosebank Road, Denton." "And the little girl, how old is she?" "Jenny, 7. "Is there a Mr. Brewer?"
"No, there flaming well isn't.
It's going to be pitch dark soon, and you're asking these stupid questions. The quicker I get the details, the quicker we can start looking for Jenny. When did you see her last? And she came home from school for her dinner. What school? Denton Junior. Wells stiffened. Denton Junior. The same school Vicky Stewart attended. Have you checked with her friends? She might be round one of their houses. What? All bleeding night? Don't be stupid. She went missing yesterday. Yesterday? Your daughter's been missing since yesterday. Frost bustled through the door on the way to his car. Inspector, missing 7-year-old Jenny Brewer, Denton Junior School, barked Wells. Frost froze. He slowly turned round and walked back to the desk. How long has she been missing? It was the woman who answered. All bloody night. Don't tell me I've got to go over it all again. The cigarette in her mouth quivered with annoyance. Frost's shoulders slumped. You'd better come with me, he told her. In number 1 interview room, he nodded her to a seat. Right, Mrs. Brewer, said Frost. Let's have the details. I haven't seen Jenny since yesterday midday when she came home for a dinner. Supposed to be spending the night round her nan's. What? My boyfriend was coming round. He doesn't like kids. Boyfriend's name and address? No, he doesn't want to get involved. Well, he bloody well is involved, Frost snapped. Name and address, please. Dennis Hadley, flat 2, Peabody Estate. And what does he do? He's a lorry driver. Where does your mother live? 21 Old Street. He scribbled down the address. And Jenny never turned up at your mother's. Would I be bloody here if she had? Frost took a couple of deep breaths to control his temper. So why didn't her nan get on to you when Jenny didn't turn up yesterday? Because I hadn't told her the kid was coming. It's not on the phone. Jenny just calls there and her nan looks after her. Old Street is right over the other side of town. Are you telling me you'd send a 7-year-old over there without any warning, supposing your mother was out? She never goes out. If she did, Jenny would come straight back. She's always got coppers for the bus. Frost nodded. So how did you know Jenny never turned up at your mother's? Oh, I bumped into her at the supermarket about half an hour ago. Jenny ever gone missing before? Couple of times, but never overnight. She knows she'd get a bleeding good hiding if she did. We'll need a photograph. She opened her handbag and handed over a tiny dog-eared coloured print of a solemn-looking child. Looks bloody young for 7, he said. It's over a year old. It's the most recent one I got. Frost regarded it doubtfully. Kids change a hell of a lot in a year. The school takes photographs every year. Haven't you got one of them? She shook her head. I didn't bother. I see, grunted Frost. What was she wearing? Greeny blue dress, black shoes, and blue anorak. Right, I'll get things moving this end. You go back home and wait. If Jenny does turn up, let us know right away. Joan Boscombe, head mistress of Denton Junior School, was slipping on her coat when Taffy Morgan arrived. She looked very young to be a head mistress. An air of authority combined with an air of vulnerability. Very sexy, he thought. It's about Jenny Brewer. Jenny? She wasn't at school today. Nothing's happened to her, I hope? Well, you hope so too, said Tuffy. The thing is, she never returned home after school yesterday. The headmistress went white. Oh, my God. We don't know it's anything serious yet, said Tuffy. When was she last at school? The pages of a register were turned. Yesterday afternoon. I remember seeing her leave. We need an up-to-date photograph. The mother doesn't seem to have one. Her lips tightened. Your mother. She swung round to a filing cabinet and pulled out a file. This was taken just before Christmas. A postcard-sized colour print showing an older version of Jenny, looking serious and pale, and what appeared to be a bruise on her right cheek. Taffy jabbed a finger. What caused that? She said she fell. But you didn't believe her. Jenny seemed to fall a bit too often for my liking. Who's been hitting her? The mother? I don't know. But she seems to go in for violent boyfriends. Did Jenny have any close friends? None that I know of. I'll ask around and let you know. Thank you. One last thing. Could you confirm she was wearing a greeny blue dress and a blue anorak yesterday? She frowned. No, she was in red. A red woolen dress. Morgan's turned to frown. Are you sure? Positive. She usually wears the same old tatty things, and this was new. She was flaunting herself in it. If she left for school wearing a blue dress and turned up in a red one, she must have stopped off on the way to change clothes, perhaps at the house of a nice, kind man who gave her the dress. Frost felt himself go cold. My gut feeling is she's dead. But let's hope I'm wrong. Let's get a search going. It's freezing out there, so the sooner we start, the better. He picked up his phone. I want every available man for a search bill, off-duty men as well. Jack, I just had a phone call. A man reckons his son has gone missing. Tony Scottney, 11 years old, never came home for his tea. The kid goes to the same school as the two missing girls. Shit, thought Frost. It never rains, but it bleeding buckets down. There was a heavy, clammy mist forming. Just the thing for a night bloody search. As he turned up the heat, Frost's radio buzzed. Jack, we think we found the boy. Frost's stomach tightened. Kid answering his description, taken to Denton Hospital, victim of a hit and run. Shit. Where did it happen? The slip road running along Denton Woods. Denton Woods? What the hell was he doing there? No idea. He had a call from a motorist, wouldn't give his name. He told us where to find him. Said the kid ran straight out in front of his car. Didn't give him a chance. And how is the boy? In intensive care. They don't expect him to pull through. Wells paused. Someone's got to break the news to the parents, and you're on the spot. Yeah. Always in the right place at the wrong bleeding time. P.C. Jordan bumped the area car along the potholed shortcut, which would take them back onto the main road. He and Sims should have had their meal break half an hour ago, but this hit-and-run accident had held them up. The mist was thickening and visibility shrinking fast. Sims had his head stuck out of the side window to ensure they didn't end up in the ditch. Suddenly he pulled in his head. Stop! It's a car! No lights, parked among the bushes. They climbed out and walked back to a dark grey BMW. No sign of the driver. Sims felt the bonnet. It's not been here long. Jordan pointed. The front near-side wing was dented and the headlamp glass shattered. Shit, hissed Sims. From behind some bushes, a groan, and then the sound of someone being violently sick. They waited by the BMW until a short, pasty-faced man in his early 30s staggered from the bushes, wiping his mouth with a handkerchief. He started when he saw the two policemen, but managed to force a weak grin. I've been sick, he explained. So we heard, said Sims, holding out a hand. Driving licence, please, sir. The door of the interview room crashed open and an untidy individual hurried in and plopped down in a chair. Frost, he announced. Detective Inspector Frost. He looked at the arrest report. Mr. Patrick Morris, is it? Yes. Yes, and I want to protest. This is all a terrible mistake. I'm sure it is, agreed Frost. But don't worry, I've asked our forensic boys to see if the blood on your car's headlamp is the same group as your gatepost. The man stared at Frost, his face scarlet with rage. You bastard! Sticks and stones, reproved Frost gently. Morris fluttered an apologetic hand. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. His head sank down. I wasn't even going fast. Just pootling along. The kid came straight at me. He didn't give me a chance. He was sober, you were drunk, said Frost. I was not drunk. And I'm not bloody deaf, said Frost. Sit down. Morris sat. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He leant over to Frost. I was not drunk. Drunk or sober, you knocked an 11-year-old kid down and you didn't stop. The kid's in intensive care. You could have done something to help him. The man in the other car came running over. I left it to him. Frost's head snapped up. What other car? An old banger, a blue Vauxhall Astra. It was parked up on the verge. When I hit the boy, the driver dashed over to him. There was nothing I could do to help, so I phoned for an ambulance on my mobile. Describe the man. Middle-aged, 45 to 50, darkish hair, going bald. Clean-shaven? Yes. Build? Average. Clothes? Suit. A dark suit. You find him and he'll confirm I wasn't speeding and the kid didn't give me a chance. And you'd better hope we do find him, said Frost. Because at the moment I don't rate your chances at all. Bill Wells was hovering outside the interview room. Initial report from Forensic Jack. Glass from the headlamp definitely matches up with the glass found at the scene. They always confirm what you know already, grunted Frost. And traffic reckons the skid marks where he braked indicate he wasn't doing more than 30 miles an hour at the most. Knickers, said Frost. I was hoping to throw the book at that bastard. Frost sat at a desk in the murder incident room, moodily smoking as he replaced the boy's blood-stained clothing in the evidence bag. A smaller bag held items taken from the boy's pockets. He shook them out on the desk. Comb, 8 pence in copper coins, a handkerchief, and the torn half of a cinema ticket. WPC June Price had rung 10 minutes before. The boy was dead. Open in front of him was the thick file on the first missing girl. 8-year-old Vicky Stewart. A couple of witnesses had reported seeing a blue car cruising past the school on the afternoon Vicky went missing, but the car hadn't been traced. He drummed his fingers on the desktop. The fact that the Vauxhall Astra was blue probably didn't mean a damn thing, but he had one of his feelings. You don't take an 11-year-old to Denton Woods in the middle of the night to pick mushrooms. A tramping of tired feet announced the return of the first of the search parties. Frost checked his watch. 10 past. Mullet had only authorised overtime until midnight. He gave them a few moments to get settled, and then followed them up to the canteen. They all looked tired. No need to ask if they had found the girl. He made his way over to a table where Detective Sergeant Arthur Hanlon sat with 5 off-duty police officers, all gratefully warming frozen hands around mugs of scalding tea. "Where's Taffy Morgan?" Frost asked. "He's where I'm going to be," replied Hanlon, "fast asleep in a nice warm bed." Frost gave a knowing smile. "You do tell fibs, Arthur. You're not going to bed for hours yet. I've got another job for you." A mass groan. He grinned and pushed his cigarettes around. "I know I'm a rotten bastard, but there's the slimmest chance this might lead us to the girl." Jordan and Sims walked past. "The boy died," Frost told them. Jordan shook his head sadly. "Poor little sod." "Is this the hit and run?" asked Hanlon. "Yes," nodded Frost. "Only the driver didn't run very far. We've got him. He reckons the kid came flying out of a parked Vauxhall Astra straight into his path. So, A man in the middle of the bloody woods at night, and the kid flying out like a bat out of hell. Why? You're suggesting the bloke was a child molester? Asked Hanlon. That's how I see it, Arthur. Oh, what has this got to do with a girl? Asked Howe, one of the off-duty PCs. The day Vicky Stewart went missing, 2 of the witnesses mentioned a blue car cruising past the school. The Astra was blue. Oh, it's a bloody long shot, Jack, exclaimed Hanlon. Maybe, Arthur, but it's all we've got. A man in his 40s, balding, dark hair, right? I want you to sift through computer records of middle-aged child molesters, and for blue Astras at least 5 years old, owned by people in the Denton area. When you get the list of Astra owners, check it against our child molesters. If you can say snap, we throw the book at the sod whether he's guilty or not. PC Collier pointed to the steps leading down to the basement area of 56B George Street. Down there, Bernie Green, a small-time flasher. He's done time for touching up kids in the cinema, things like that. And he's going bald. Frost peered down the stone steps of the dilapidated building to the area where mist swirled around, overflowing dustbins and other junk. These bastards never live in rose-covered cottages, do they? Is there a back way? Yeah, a yard of sorts, and a broken-down brick wall, Al reported. Get round there, Frost told Collier. He might make a run for it. With Howe following, he descended the steps and hammered on the door. Open up, police! He kicked the door. Open up or we'll break the door down! This proved easier said than done. The door was locked and heavily bolted, and Howe's shoulder was getting numbed from charging at it, when Frost's radio crackled. I got him, Inspector. He's trying to climb over the back wall. Frost and Howe hurried round to the rear entrance to find a triumphant Collier holding the handcuffed arm of red and white striped pajamaed, barefooted Bernie Green. Hello, Bernie, said Frost. We were passing, so we thought we'd drop in. Get him in the house, he told Collier. He took a quick look round the yard, which held an outside toilet and a brick-built coal bunker, and waited while Howe's torch explored the interiors. No sign of the girl. They followed Collier and Green into the basement flat, a miserable room, cold and damp, which held a bed, a table, 2 chairs, and in the corner a tiny cooker and a sink. Nowhere to hide a body. Green was shivering violently. So Frost snatched the eiderdown from the bed and wrapped it round him. Don't want you dying of cold before we beat the confession out of you, Bernie, he said. Green looked up at the inspector, his face a picture of misery. I never touched him, Mr. Frost. I swear to God, I never laid a finger on him. Frost gave the man his disbelieving stare. How is he, Miss Frost? Asked Green at last. He's dead, said Frost bluntly. Dead? Oh, God! He buried his face in his crooked arm, his shoulders shaking. I never did anything. That's right, nodded Frost. You did sod all. You just left him to die in the middle of the road. Take him down to the station. This place is giving me the creeps.
End of Disc 1. Disc 2.
I swear I never touched him, Miss Frost. Bernie's tongue flickered over the dry lips. I never do things against their will. I offered him money if he'd let me do something. That's when he ran out. I swear I never laid a finger on him. You check my file. I always ask him first. I always get their consent. That boy, all he had to say was no, and I wouldn't have touched him. I'd have driven him home. He had no need to go running out of the car like that. He was shit scared, Bernie. You take him to the woods in the middle of the night, you demand sexual bloody favours from a kid. He must have been terrified. Green stared down at the floor. I'm sorry. I just can't help myself sometimes. And what about the 2 little girls from Denton Jr.? Couldn't you help yourself with them either? The man raised his head and frowned. What two little girls? Frost flicked two photographs across the table. Vicky Stewart and Jenny Brewer. Green shrank back. I don't know anything about them. Frost gave his benign smile. Your car was seen outside the school, Bernie. Where did you take them? To the woods, like the boy? Are they buried in the woods? I didn't take them anywhere. Did you take them back to your luxurious apartment, Bernie? We can check, you know. We can go over every inch of the place. A look of relief flickered across Green's face. You can do what you like. You won't find anything. And every inch of your car. If we find so much as a flake of skin, a hair even, from either of those two girls... Bernie jerked back as if he'd been struck. A hair? That's all we need for DNA tests, Bernie. He smiled sweetly. Not a problem, is it? Green buried his face in his hands. Hold on, Inspector, and give me time to think. After a few seconds, Green sat up and pushed the photograph of Vicky Stewart away. I know nothing about her, Mr. Frost, but this one... He tapped the photograph of Jenny Brewer. I might have given her a lift. Frost's eyebrows soared. What do you mean, might? All right. I did give her a lift, so it's possible you might find one of her hairs in my car, but that don't mean anything. That's all it was. It was a lift. And when was this? The day she went missing. I was driving past the school just as the kids were coming out, and I sees this little girl in red trotting along, all on her own, and it was peeing with rain, and she had no Mac, so I asked her if she wanted a lift, and she said, would I take her to Argyle Street? Argyle Street? Yeah, it's a few blocks away from the school. She told me she was going to have a photograph taken, and I said, I got some nice pictures at home. Would you like to see them? And she said, no, and got out and ran across the road to this house. I watched her ring the bell, and a bloke answered, and she went in. What was the house number? The one on the corner. You actually saw her go inside? Yes! He had done it so many times before he could almost do it in his sleep. Jab the bell push, pound the door with the flat of your hand and yell, "Open up, police!" His radio paged him. I'm in position. Collier had been sent to the rear of the house to block any escape route. Again, Frost thumbed the bell push, letting it ring and ring. At last, an upstairs light came on. A window was raised and a head poked out. Who is it? Police, yelled Frost. Open up! Police? Oh, my God! The window slammed shut. Frost waited, shivering as the damp night mist bit through his clothes. There was a clicking of locks, and the front door opened to reveal a rotund little man in his mid-40s, fully dressed and zipping up a driving jacket. He seemed nervy and agitated. Oh, dear, how bad is she, did they say? Completely wrong-footed, Frost spluttered. I'm sorry, sir. How bad is who? My mother. Hospital said if her condition worsened, I'm not on the phone, you see. Then he saw the two police cars. We're not here about your mother, said Frost. Perhaps we could come in. It's freezing out here. Yes. Yes, of course. Shaking his head in puzzlement, he ushered Frost, P.C. Sims and Jordan following, into a small room furnished with 2 easy chairs, a table and a sideboard on which stood a small colour TV set. He clicked on the log-effect electric fire and then turned to face Frost, showing him his trembling hands. Look at me. I'm shaking. My mother's been in hospital nearly 3 months. She couldn't swallow. They've operated, but every time there's a knock at the door, I feel the worst. He dropped down in an armchair. Like I said, we're not here about your mother, sir, Frost told him. I'm Detective Inspector Frost. I'm investigating the disappearance of 2 missing children, Vicky Stewart and Jenny Brewer. The man's face showed concern. Oh, those poor children. What their mothers must be going through. We know your name, sir.
Weaver. Charles Edward Weaver. But I don't see how this concerns me.
We've had reports, Mr. Weaver, that one of the girls was seen entering your house on the afternoon she went missing. He showed the photograph of Jenny Brewer. This little girl, sir. Weaver took the photograph in a hand that shook. He studied it, then looked up in dismay.
I didn't know it was her. Your informant is partly correct, Inspector. That little girl came to my house. She knocked and said something about wanting me to take her photo.
Why would she ask that, huh?
She must have seen me out and about with my camera. Photography's my hobby. I pretended my camera was broken, and she went away. She never came in.
Why did you tell her your camera was broken? Weaver gave a sad smile.
A single man alone in the house with a young child. You know how neighbours talk.
I hope they bloody talk when we chat them up, thought Frost. And you are positive she didn't come inside the house? You didn't close the front door behind her even for a second?
Definitely not. She went skipping off. It was pouring with rain. There was a blue car outside. I got the impression she might have gone off in that. And she was the one who is missing. Poor little mite.
Weaver sounded sincere and genuinely upset, but Frost was feeling that buzz, that almost sexual thrill of excitement that was whispering to him that this was their man. Frost poked a cigarette in his mouth, but before he could light up, Weaver fluttered a hand.
I'd be obliged if you didn't smoke.
He patted his chest.
Asthma affects my breathing.
He produced an inhaler from beside his chair. Frost returned the cigarette to his packet. We'll get on with the search, then.
A search warrant?
Blinked Weaver, staring at the document Frost had thrust into his hand. Frost jerked a thumb to his team. Start with the upstairs rooms. Weaver watched in dismay as forensics and Rawlings, the scenes of crime officer, thundered up the stairs. Frost took Weaver by the arm and led him to the kitchen where P.C. Jordan was opening and shutting drawers. We can talk in here, sir. He noticed a bag of boiled sweets on the table. Sherbet limes. He hadn't had sherbet limes since he was a kid. Are these yours, sir?
Yes,
snapped Weaver, snatching the bag from him.
They are mine. I don't use them to lure young children in here, if that's what you're implying.
I wasn't implying any such thing, sir, said Frost. I was hoping you'd offer me one. The sound of nails wrenched from wood coming from above made Weaver start.
What is that?
That's the floorboards coming up, in case you forgot to tell us about the body. Inspector! P.C. Sims was calling from the top of the stairs. Would you come up? Have a look at this, please. Frost thudded up the stairs, past a tiny bedroom with a commode alongside the bed, evidently the mother's room, and came to Weaver's bedroom. It was a small suitcase, far too small to hold a child's body. Inside it were photographs, lots of photographs, some black and white, some colour, all of children, small children, mostly in the nude. Sims had pulled the wardrobe away from the wall. Sellotaped to the back was a large manila envelope. Frost yelled for Weaver to be brought up. Any idea what this contains, sir? Weaver had gone the colour of chalk. He collapsed on the bed and buried his face in his hands. Frost removed the envelope and shook out the contents. A series of black and white photographs of a young girl, some semi-clothed, others in the nude. The girl was Jenny Brewer. Frost rammed the photographs in Weaver's face. All right, you bastard, where is she? What have you done to her? Weaver flinched and sniffed back tears. I've done nothing with her. She was alive when she left here. You're lying, snarled Frost. Where is she? Weaver shook his head, knuckling his eyes. Charles Edward Weaver, intoned Frost. I'm arresting you on suspicion of being involved in the disappearance of Jenny Brewer. He tailed off. He never could remember the words of the new caution and had to step back so Sims could finish it off for him.
This is a nightmare, blubbed Weaver. I'm innocent.
Take the innocent bastard away, said Frost. The cleaners had given the interview room a flick over. Its permanent smell of sweat, old socks and stale cigarette smoke was now tinged with pine disinfectant. Frost plonked himself down opposite Weaver. He rammed a cigarette in his mouth and lit up without thinking. One puff before Weaver was coughing, spluttering and flapping his hand to clear away the smoke.
Please, Inspector. I asthma.
Frost pinched out the cigarette and dropped it back in the packet. Tell me about Jenny.
She saw me in the street with my camera and wanted her photograph taken.
When was this?
A few weeks ago. I told her no, but she kept knocking at my door. In the end, I let her in.
Why?
She looked so pitiful. I felt sorry for her. I didn't intend taking the photographs. It just happened.
She just happened to strip off and you just happened to have your camera handy. Weaver bowed his head. She'd do it for free.
I gave her sweets. Bought her little gifts.
Clothes?
Red dress. She kept it at my place.
Where is it?
I burnt it.
What did... Frost jerked his head round angrily as someone knocked at the door of the interview room. He flicked a finger for Sims to see who it was. It was Sergeant Bill Wells, who beckoned urgently to Frost to come outside. The hospital's phoned, Jack. Weaver's mother has taken a turn for the worse. They think he should get over there right away. Frost found a dog end in his pocket and took a couple of quick drags before grinding underfoot. That bleeding woman picks her moments to go critical. No other cars were available, so Frost had to drive Weaver to the hospital, deliberately taking a route which led past Denton Woods, slowing down as they passed lines of men and women painstakingly searching for the missing Jenny Brewer. "Tell us where she is," he pleaded. Weaver sighed.
If I could, I would. I just don't know.
Her mother is desperate.
Her mother is a cow, and the boyfriend used to beat her up. You should be questioning them, not wasting your time with me. She left my house at about 5:15. She said she had to get round to her grandmother's house. It was raining, so I gave her £1 for the bus fare.
As they approached the hospital, Frost sensed the man was tightening up, looking slightly uneasy. Anything wrong, Mr. Weaver?
Wrong? No, of course not. Just worried about my mother.
The denial was a little too strong. Weaver was uneasy about the hospital. Frost would tell Hanlon to make the search of the hospital's sprawling grounds a priority. Once through the main entrance, Frost had a job keeping up with Weaver as he hurried up the stairs to his mother's ward. A nurse took them into a small, single-bedded room where an old woman, her face as white as the hospital sheets, lay with her eyes closed, mumbling to herself. "Visitors for you, Mrs. Weaver," said the nurse, breezily. The old woman made no sign that she had heard. Weaver, seated in the chair by the bed, talked quietly to his mother. Her eyes fluttered open. He took her hand and gently stroked it. "It's me, Mother. Charles." If she knew he was there, she gave no sign. Her mouth opened and closed a few times, and the eyes fluttered shut. Frost backed away to the door. "I'll leave you to it for a while," he whispered, almost feeling sorry for the poor sod. Outside he stood staring through the fourth-floor window to the surrounding countryside. At this height he was above the mist and could see clumps of it in the hollows clinging to the ground, and then, suddenly emerging from it, a line of searchers.
He switched his gaze down to the hospital grounds, lots of sheds and outbuildings, plenty of places to hide a girl's body. Weaver would often visit the hospital when it was dark. He found a phone and called Hanlon. "We've already done the hospital grounds, Jack," Hanlon told him. "Do them again," Frost ordered. "As soon as you've got a team free, I want them here. Pander to my whim, Arthur. I've got one of my nasty feelings." Back again to the 4th floor, where he peeked in on Weaver, who was still sitting by the bed, talking in a low, gentle tone. "I've got your room waiting all ready for when you come home. And Auntie Maisie sends her love." The old woman's eyes remained closed. She wasn't hearing him. Frost gave Weaver another half hour, then drove him back to the station. "We're going to search the hospital grounds," he announced. "We reckon that's where you've put the girl." Weaver didn't seem at all worried. "I hope you find her alive and well, Inspector. Then you can stop wasting your time on me and get after the real culprit." Detective Sergeant Arthur Hanlon followed the silent line of men and women as they moved slowly forward, poking and prodding. It was nearly 5 o'clock and almost too dark to see. Time to call the search off until the morning. A police whistle shrilled, echoed by other fainter whistles in the distance. Wearily the searchers straightened up and made for their transport. Hanlon's back hurt from continually stooping. He was cold, his trouser legs were sodden from wet grass, his clothes clammy. He ached all over and he was hungry. He looked around. Where was Jack Frost? The inspector had gone over to the hospital building to join the men Hanlon had been able to spare to search them yet again. A waste of time, but the inspector was insistent. And had Frost dismissed the men? Mullet was getting very fidgety about overtime. None was to be paid for after 5 o'clock. Hanlon climbed in his car and headed for the hospital grounds to find Frost. He turned up his coat collar as he plodded over the thick carpet of wet fallen leaves along the little-used paths at the back of the hospital. There was Frost's car, and the wind carried the smell of cigarette smoke. Frost was near. "Jack?" A grunt in reply. Hanlon squeezed through some bushes, and there was Frost, slumped against the crumbling brick wall of a derelict hospital shed. "I've called off the search for tonight, Jack. We'll meet up again at first light tomorrow." "Cancel it. I've found her, Arthur." He jerked a thumb at the shed. Hanlon's face creased into a puzzled frown. "She can't be there, Jack. We searched her this morning and this afternoon." "She's in there." Hanlon moved to look, but Frost caught his sleeve. "Don't be in such a bloody hurry to see her, Arthur. She's dead. Bastard has raped and strangled her. He's nearly torn her apart." Weaver blinked at the light as Collier ushered him into the interview room, smoothing back his hair and rubbing his face as if he had just been wakened from a sound sleep. He gave Frost his always-willing-to-help smile. Frost stared at him, nose wrinkled with contempt, as he flicked a finger to the chair. "Sit!" Weaver sat, looking hurt at the inspector's tone. "You're interested in photographs, aren't you?" asked Frost, snatching a photograph from the file on the table and thrusting it in Weaver's face. It was the forensic Polaroid photograph of the dead Jenny Brewer, eyes bulging, blood trickling from her nose and mouth. Weaver flinched and pushed Frost's hands away. He closed his eyes and refused to look. "Recognize her?" demanded Frost, barely in control of himself. "That's how we found her. Were her eyes open in terror like that when you raped the poor little cow? 7 years old, you bastard! 7 years old!" The colour seeped from Weaver's face. He slid his chair back from the table, as if trying to get as far from the photograph as possible. "You're trying to incriminate me!" he shrilled. You want a suspect, so you're framing me! Did you give her one of your green sweets first? Here, little girl, have a sweetie, while nice Uncle Charlie rapes you and then chokes the bloody life out of you? Weaver started sobbing, then leapt to his feet, sending the chair crashing back to the wall. You framed me! You planted the body! You! Then his eyes opened wide and his hand went to his throat, tearing open his collar. He was making deep, wheezing noises as he desperately tried to suck air in. Frost sprang up and flung the door open. Bill, get his bloody inhaler! Weaver sank to his knees, fighting for breath. After what seemed ages, Wells returned with the inhaler. Get him a doctor, said Frost, and bloody quick. He snapped a glance at Collier. Interview terminated at 8:20. 8:24, corrected Collier. What bloody difference? Snarled Frost as he stamped out. Mullet waylaid him as he was on his way out to the autopsy. You found Jenny Brewer. Why am I always the last to know? Sorry, mumbled Frost. I was on my way to see you now. And she was found in a place that was supposed to have been searched earlier. Yes, he was in no mood for a bollocking and had to suppress the urge to barge Mullet out of the way and get back to his office. So, most of today's search, which involved 60 men and women, many on overtime, was a complete and utter waste of time. No, we found her. But if she had been found the first time that shed was searched, we could have called off the teams hours ago. Have you any idea what this little lot cost? No, answered Frost. Funnily enough, that was the last thing on my mind. All I was stupidly thinking of was trying to find the poor little cow. Mullet glowered. Don't try to be clever with me, Frost. We all wanted that, but everything has to be paid for. Who was supposed to have searched that shed? No idea, replied Frost, but I'm going to find out. He did know, but he wanted to talk to the man before dropping him in it with Mullet. I want his name the minute you find out. I'm throwing the book at him, Frost. He spun on his heels, then realised he hadn't involved Frost in this foul-up. He jabbed an accusing finger. You're in charge, Frost. It was your responsibility to check and double-check. Your usual sloppiness had no place here. He turned and stamped back to his office, sped on his way by a two-fingered gesture. Frost stood well back from the pool of light that splashed down onto the autopsy table. He didn't want to see what Drysdale was doing to the poor kid. He just wanted the pathologist to find something that would link the crime positively to Weaver. Every now and then Drysdale would move back so the man from forensic could take photographs. Extensive tearing and bruising around the vaginal area, Drysdale intoned flatly. He lifted one of the child's arms and examined the wrist. Traces of adhesive? Frost nodded. That was one of the first things he had spotted. The wrists had been bound together to stop the kid struggling. He felt a surge of despair. Fading bruises on arms, legs and buttocks, continued Drysdale, made at least a week before death. Yes, Frost told him. The mother's boyfriend used to hit her. Drysdale grunted. More signs of adhesive around the mouth. Hello? Frost's head snapped up. Drysdale was teasing something from the child's mouth, something sodden and grey, which he dropped into a kidney bowl. Bathroom tissue of some kind. Looks as if he used a ball of it as a gag. Frost joined him to examine the mess in the stainless steel bowl. Toilet paper. He used toilet paper. He tugged out his mobile phone and, watched by a frowning Drysdale, got through to control. Send someone over to Weaver's house right away. I want the toilet roll from his bog, bagged and sent over to forensic, and search the place for condoms. If they find any, let me know right away.
He turned back to Drysdale, who was again teasing away at the mouth, extracting more tissue. "Get it all out, Doc. Every piece." Drysdale glowered. "I don't need you to tell me how to do my job, Inspector." He dumped another sodden wad into the kidney bowl. "She could have choked on this." "Did she?" asked Frost. "No. She died of manual strangulation." "Anything under her nails?" In answer, Drysdale pointed to the fingers. The nails were bitten down. Said Frost bitterly. "Nothing at all yet to link Weaver to the crime. I need something, Doc. I really do." He turned his head away as Drysdale's scalpel slashed across the tiny stomach. "She ate 2 boiled sweets about half an hour before she died." The pathologist held up a small glass jar in which little bits of green floated. "Lime drops." "He admits to giving her sweets." Some 48 to 60 hours. Last seen alive 2 days ago, Doc. Nearer 48 hours, then. Ample evidence of sexual penetration, but no trace of semen. Frost switched off. He didn't want to hear this part. Poor little cow. Mouth stuffed with toilet tissue. Hands taped behind her back so she couldn't fight off dear old Uncle Charlie. He tore himself away from his thoughts and found himself staring at the pale face. "She was a pretty little kid," he said. Drysdale looked up from his cutting and gave the face a quick glance. "Yes, I suppose she was." As soon as the autopsy was over, Frost hurried over to the forensic lab to find out if they had had any joy matching up the toilet paper. "It'll be another 24 hours, protested Harding. "All we can say at the moment is that the roll from Weaver's house and the substance taken from the girl's mouth appear to be of the same type and colour and from the same manufacturer." Frost sighed with relief. "Well, that's something. The trouble is, Inspector, this is one of the top-selling brands. Millions are sold every week. You've probably got the same type in your bathroom." Frost shook his head. "I use Mullet's memos. They give me more satisfaction." A technician who was squinting down a microscope in the far corner beckoned Harding over. They held a murmured conversation, and from the look on Harding's face when he returned, Frost knew he wasn't going to like this. "I'm afraid the probability is that the samples are from 2 entirely different rolls." "Oh, it doesn't take 24 hours when it's bad bleeding news, does it?" moaned Frost bitterly. "How can you be sure?" The paper in the girl's mouth came from a brand new roll. "How the hell do you know that?" "The manufacturers always seal down the end of the toilet roll to stop it flapping open." He held up a new roll. "You can see the ridge on this one here." Frost nodded gloomily. "Everything you wanted to know about bog paper but were afraid to ask." "And the roll from Weaver's house?" "At least 3/4 used. Find the brand new roll and there's a good chance we can match the perforations." Out with the mobile to call control. "Get another team over to Weaver's place. Go through drawers, cupboards, cases, the lot. We're looking for another toilet roll. If they have no luck, forage his rubbish bins. Use as many men as you like, but find it." As he disconnected, the phone rang. A voice he didn't recognise asked, "Inspector Frost, Detective Chief Inspector Preston, Belton Division." Belton was the neighbouring division to Denton. "What can I do for you?" asked Frost. "It's what I can do for you, Inspector. We've found something of yours." It was a dark, bumpy, rutted dirt road, overhung with dripping trees. But as Frost turned the bend, everything sprang into life with floodlights, cars double parked, radios chattering, men crawling over the grass verge, and a small tent-like structure glowing orange. Detective Chief Inspector Preston, thin, balding, and unsmiling, greeted him with a curt nod. "We could have done without this. It's your damn crime, with the victim being dumped in our division." "Oh, stick her in the car and I'll take her back to Denton," grunted Frost, hating the man on sight. "Where is she?" "Where do you think? We didn't put the tent up to go camping." He ducked through the entrance and Frost followed. She lay on her back, eyes open, like the others. Naked, sagging, the rolls of fat on her stomach disfigured with bruises and burns. "That's Big Bertha. Shares her flat in Clayton Street with another Tom." Deep marks were grooved into the raw, bloodied wrist. The poor bitch has had a right going over. "Suffocated, probably, with a pillow," said Preston. "Doctor reckons she's been dead a couple of days at least." Frost straightened up. "We've got to get this bastard, and bloody quick. He's got the taste for it." Frost marched into the station and the shrill, urgent ringing of the alarm from the cell area. He was aware of voices raised in panic and the other prisoners banging their cell doors and shouting. Over it all, Bill Wells calling, "Cut him down, quick!" Then yelling up the corridor, "Get an ambulance!" Frost raced down to the holding area. The door to Weaver's cell was wide open. 2 uniformed men were bending over a figure on the floor, one pummeling the chest, the other giving the kiss of life, with Wells looking anxiously on. "He's topped himself," said Wells, sounding furious, as if this was personally directed against him. "The silly sod has hanged himself. I checked him a few minutes ago and he was all right." "How could he hang himself?" asked Frost. Wells pointed. On the floor lay a coil of white nylon cord, the knotted noose at the end cut where they had removed it from Weaver's neck. "Where the hell did he get the rope from?" Wells demanded. Frost bent and picked up the cord, which had a beige plastic tassel at the end. Shit! The hospital. The cord on the Venetian blind in the mother's room. When he left Weaver alone, the sod must have cut off a length. There were scissors on the trolley by the bed. Bloody hell! Mullet's going to have a field day over this. Frost ordered the uniformed men out of the cell and sat down on the bunk bed. What a bloody mess. Wells sank down beside him. "It's all bloody Mullet's fault, sending half our manpower away to help other divisions. We should have a proper custody officer. I'm having to do 2 jobs. I haven't got the time to do them both properly." He looked imploringly at Frost. "There's going to be an investigation, Jack. They'll be looking for scapegoats. So let's get our story straight. I searched him. You saw me? Frost lit up a cigarette. Don't worry, Bill. If there's any blame going, I'll cop the lot. He left a note, said Wells. Says he didn't do it. Note? Frost's head snapped up. Where? Wells pointed. Taped to the inside of the cell door. Frost slammed the door shut. And there it was, stuck to the door with a strip of surgical tape, scrawled on the back of one of Weaver's mother's old hospital charts. Weaver must have planned this all out in advance, as he sat in that room, squeezing the hand of his dying mother. Dearest mother, I didn't do it. They're making me out to be some kind of perverted monster. That Inspector Frost is framing me. He's bullying me to confess to something I didn't do. I'm innocent, but I can't stand the shame. Goodbye, Mum. See you in heaven, Charlie. In heaven, snorted Frost. In hell, more like. You'll be able to complain to Mullet personally when the time comes. Mullet stared coldly at Frost. You left him unattended in a room with scissors and a cord. A man you suspected of being a child killer. You left him. Yes, said Frost. I felt sorry for the poor sod. His mother was dying. He claims he is innocent. So did Crippen. Mullet waved this to one side. I've listened to the tapes of your last interview. As he says, you bullied him. He was weeping. I bet that poor kid was weeping when he raped her. Mullet glared. A bungled, mishandled investigation with tragic consequences. Nothing was bungled, snapped Frost. If the silly bastard hadn't topped himself, it would have been an ongoing investigation. If we found he didn't do it, and it's a bloody big if, we would have let him go. If, countered Mullet. A death in custody and an innocent man. The press will be down on us like a ton of bricks. Innocent my arse, exploded Frost. Mullet flushed angrily. There will be an investigation of this death in custody, and I'm going to put in a strong recommendation that you be suspended from duty. Thank you very much, said Frost as he stood up. For a moment I was terrified you'd be on my side. He left, Mullet glowering at the slammed door. Morgan lumbered in, rubbing his eyes and yawning. Look what the cat's sicked up, said Frost. Where the hell were you yesterday? Morgan frowned. With a search party, Gov. And after that? I went straight off, spent the night at a friend's place. A female? Asked Frost. Yes. He rubbed his hand across his forehead. I think we overdid the drink. I think you overdid the other as well, snapped Frost. He rifled through the pile of forms filled in by the search parties. You searched that old garden shed in the hospital grounds? Did I, Gov? Frost waved the form at him. You've ticked it to say you did. Well, if I ticked it, then I searched it. He frowned. What's the problem? The problem, Frost told him, is that the shed you thoroughly searched is where we found the girl. Morgan firmly shook his head. No, Gov, that's not possible. Weaver must have put it there after I searched. That was clever of him, seeing as how he was in our custody all day. Then someone else dumped it for him. Just to oblige him, don't let's beat about the bush. You ticked it off, but you didn't search it. Morgan loosened his tie. We are talking about the same place, Gov? Little shed, fertilizer sacks, a sort of shelf thing like on the wall? Yes. I searched it, insisted Morgan. Look, Gov, I may be all sorts of a shit, but if I'm looking for a kid, then I flaming well look. I lifted the sacks, each one. She wasn't there, I swear it. Frost looked hard at him. Weaver topped himself last night. Left a note saying he didn't do it, and I had hounded him to death. The DC leant back in the chair, mouth sagging, eyes wide open. Bloody hell. You're positive you searched that shed? Positive, Gov? Is there any way that you could have missed her? You saw the place, Gov. No one could have missed her. They both looked round as the door opened. It was Arthur Hanlon who handed over a small brown manila envelope. This was in the post, Jack. Frost glanced at the handwritten address. The detective in charge, the Jenny Brewer investigation, Denton Police. He ripped it open and pulled out a single folded sheet of cheap, lined notepaper. The message was in the same handwriting as the envelope. You have made a mistake and arrested the wrong man. The body is in the shed at the back of the hospital. The button came from her dress. He shook out a blue button. A button was missing from Jenny's dress when they found her. The postmark stated the envelope had been posted at the main Denton post office 3:15 p.m. the previous afternoon. He showed the note to Arthur Hanlon, who skimmed through it. Whoever sent this, Jack, knew where the body was before we found it. I love people who state the flaming obvious, said Frost. Send the button over to forensic and let's see if it matches the others. Knowing my luck, it's bound to. He shook his head. It doesn't make sense. If I'd done a murder, I'd be over the bloody moon if the fuzz arrested someone else for it. I wouldn't try to clear him. Turning the key in the lock of Weaver's house, Frost stepped into the darkness of the hall. The house had a cold, empty, desolate feel. Forensic had been over every inch of the place and had found nothing. He shuddered at the thought that he might have driven an innocent man to suicide. A tiny sound broke the silence. He stiffened, ears straining. There it was again. The creaking of a floorboard. Someone moving about upstairs. Some bastard who knew the house was empty had broken in. Slowly and noiselessly, he made his way upstairs. Light leaked from under the bedroom door, the mother's room. Carefully, he inched the door open. Someone was bending over the chest of drawers, rifling through its contents. He raised his torch above his head. Hold it, you're nicked! The intruder spun round. Frost gawped. It was a woman, grey-haired, in her early 70s. For a split second they just stared at each other. Then she suddenly leapt at him, nails clawing for his face, screaming, "Police! Help! Police!" He dropped the torch so he could have both hands free and managed to hold off her talons. "I am the bleeding police," he yelled, pushing her roughly aside and fumbling for his warrant card. "Look at it, you silly cow! Who the hell are you, and what are you doing here?" "I'm Mrs. Maisie White, Ada's sister." "Ada? Who's Ada?" "Little Charlie's mother. I'm his Aunt Maisie." Of course, thought Frost. Why am I being so thick? You mean Charles Weaver, the bloke who lives here? "Lived here," she corrected, dabbing her eye with a tiny handkerchief. "Can't believe it. First little Charlie, then Ada." "Ada? His mother? She's dead?" The woman nodded. "Early this morning they didn't tell her. She never knew." "I'm sorry." "A merciful release," she said. Her expression changed. "Are you the policeman who drove little Charlie to suicide?" Frost winced. "We found photographs," he told her. "The little girl was in his house the afternoon she went missing, and he lied to us. He was our prime suspect." She sat on the bed beside him. "He didn't do it, Inspector. Believe me, I know. He was sweet, gentle and kind. As soon as he knew his mother was ill, he had her moved in here. He devoted himself to her. Lovely boy." Her lip trembled and she started to sob again. Frost saw Weaver as a murdering bastard. She saw him as sweet little Charlie. The little girl who was raped and killed was a lovely girl. She dried her eyes. I know that little boy. I brought him up. His mother wasn't married. It's commonplace now, but it was a dreadful thing then. The father deserted her and she had to go out to work, so I brought him up. Charlie loved children. No, not in a nasty way, but as a kind, gentle man. He didn't harm that little girl, Inspector. But you made him take the blame. But that was more than poor little Charlie could stand. The case is still open, Frost told her. If he's innocent, I won't keep it a secret. Frost slept an untroubled sleep until 2 a.m, when the insistent ringing of the phone woke him up. The pie and chip van, which catered for the night trade, drunks rolling home from the local pubs, long-distance lorry drivers, cabbies, was parked in a cul-de-sac alongside the local comprehensive school. At 1:30 a.m, it should have been a blaze of light, wafting out the greasy reek of fried onions, but it was now in darkness. The area had already been cordoned off by the time Frost arrived. Arthur Hanlon scuttled across to meet him. Another dead Tom, Jack. She's under the van. Frost rubbed his hands briskly. The biting wind was cutting right through him. Do we know her? We can't get to her face until we can move the van. Are we sure she's a Tom? I managed to squeeze part of the way under, Collier told him. She's naked and she's been beaten and burnt, just like the others. Frost passed his cigarettes around. Who found her? Ted Turner, the bloke who runs the stall. Some joker's let his tyres down and he had to go back home to fetch a foot pump. What time? Just after 12:30. He checked the tyres then and she wasn't there. And he got back when? 1:30-ish. She was dumped between those times. We've never been so close to the sod, said Frost. He was here less than an hour ago. He was right here. This might be the break we're looking for. He squinted down the street. Still a couple of houses with lights showing. Start knocking on doors. Find out if anyone spotted a van, a car, anything coming down this road just after midnight. He switched his attention back to the body. How do we get to her without dragging her out? If we pumped up the tyres, we could move the van, suggested Hanlon. Do it, nodded Frost, looking up as headlights flooded the scene. P.C. Collier, guarding the cul-de-sac, waved it through. Frost grinned as Dr. Mackenzie, the police surgeon, climbed out. Over here, Doc. We can do you a hot meat pie or a cold dead body. Mackenzie waved his bag happily. He was always pleased to see Frost, even at 3 o'clock on a bitterly cold morning. Where is she? Frost pointed to the van where a perspiring Arthur Hanlon was working away at a foot pump. Under there, Doc. We'll have the van moved soon. Hanlon straightened up as the last of the tyres was fully inflated. He disconnected the pump, stepping smartly back as the van was slowly driven forward. It cleared the body by a good few inches, and canvas screens were quickly erected. Mackenzie made a brief examination. Female, aged around 35 to 40. Dead some 24 hours to 36 hours, probably asphyxiated, definitely sexually assaulted. Well, you can see the blood, badly beaten and burnt, but you can see that for yourself. He straightened up. Drysdale will fill in the details. He looked down at the body. Are you sure she's a Tom? The rest were, said Frost. I don't recognise her, though. He took a good look at her. Short, dumpy, with straight black hair, no makeup of any kind. If she's a Tom, he decided, she's a bloody weird one. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Frost dragged the green gown over his mac and scarf. It was like the North Flaming Pole in the autopsy room. He had to keep warm somehow. Drysdale was hovering, scalpel poised. Right. Let's see if we can uncover any points that the good Dr. Mackenzie overlooked. As the pathologist droned away with initial findings, Frost's mind drifted onto other things. Although his autopilot was ready to switch him back to full alert should anything of any interest come up, he was suddenly switched back. "Sorry, Doc, what was that?" "I asked if Dr. Mackenzie told you that this woman was a virgin before she was assaulted." Frost gaped. "A virgin?" No doubt about it. Frost's mind was in a whirl. They had put the killer down as a curb crawler picking up toms. This required a radical rethink. Poor cow. What a lousy, bleeding way to have your first sexual experience. Violent penetration, bruising, bleeding, but no trace of semen, continued Drysdale. A dig in the back made Frost turn, and there was Morgan. "Is that your unknown victim, Gov?" "Yes." "Gov, she's the spitting image of the receptionist from the dentist. She was wearing glasses." "Glasses?" Drysdale bent closer. "Oh, she did wear glasses. There's an indentation across the bridge." "All right," said Frost. "Phone the dentist and ask if their receptionist is alive or dead on an autopsy table." "Will do, Gov," said Morgan before trotting away. "The dental receptionist?" mused Drysdale, picking up a scalpel. "Don't get too excited, Doc," Frost told him. "He's not as reliable as I am." "I wouldn't have thought that possible," said Drysdale as he drew a red line with the scalpel across the stomach. The swing doors crashed open and Morgan bounded back in. "She hasn't been to work since Friday. They phoned her flat but got no reply." "All right," said Frost. "Then let's pay her a visit." The name on the neatly typed card pinned to the front door of the flat read, "Helen Stokes." On the step were 3 bottles of milk. Frost hammered on the door, knowing that no one was going to answer. The door to the flat opposite opened and a bird-like old dear stuck her head out.
"I think she must be away. Can I help?"
Gas board," said Frost. "A report of a smell of gas." He sniffed. "Cool, strong. Better keep your door shut, love." The door slammed shut. None of Frost's skeleton keys worked, so Morgan kicked the door in. They stepped inside. Frost stooping to pick up the 2 letters on the doormat, a credit card statement and an envelope without a stamp. The flap wasn't stuck down, so he thumbed it open. A scribbled note from the Ashby Dental Practice saying, "Concerned you did not come to work today, please phone." He couldn't read the signature. A tiny flat. The curtains were tightly drawn. Morgan pulled them open, letting in the morning sunshine. The same cold, chilling atmosphere that Frost had felt so many times before, almost as if the place knew that its occupant was dead. A quick nose round. Kitchen, bathroom, tiny lounge and bedroom. "See if you can find a photograph, son." A thick winter coat was hanging in the hall. Frost went through the pockets. A petrol receipt. Nothing else. The front door had been fitted with a strong security chain, and there were smoke alarms on the walls of every room. A cautious woman. He wandered into the lounge where Morgan, on his knees, was going through the contents of a drawer. "Gov!" Morgan waved a passport. Frost flipped it open. The unsmiling face of the dead woman stared back at him. He radioed through to the station, asking them to send someone over to make the flat secure. "Some silly sods kicked the door in," he told them. The old dear opposite was hovering as they left. "We fixed the gas leak," Frost assured her.
"I've just remembered,"
she said.
"We're all electric."
He pretended not to hear. Ashby, the dentist, had a new receptionist, a cheery little redhead with perfect white teeth. She giggled nervously at the sight of Frost's warrant card. Mr. Ashby's with a patient right now. If you'll take a seat, I'll let him know as soon as he's finished. They sat in the waiting area next to a stout woman and a man with a swollen jaw. Frost leapt to his feet as the surgery door opened and the previous patient, a pale-faced man, came unsteadily out. Ashby was drying his hands on a towel. "Police," Frost informed him, flashing his warrant card. The colour drained from Ashby's face. "Police? What's happened?" "Give us a moment, please," Frost asked the nurse, waiting until she had left. "It's about your receptionist, sir, Miss Stokes. Sad news, I'm afraid. Miss Stokes was found dead last night." Ashby stared at Frost, unable to take it in. "Dead? An accident?" "No, sir. We believe she was murdered." "Murdered? Helen? Oh, my God, no." "I'm afraid so, sir." "When did you see her last?" 8 o'clock Friday night. Then on Monday she didn't turn up. We phoned, got no reply. I popped round myself and put a note through the letterbox." His eyes widened. "God, are you saying she was lying there, dead, all the time?" "Not in the flat, sir, no. We don't think she went back to her flat Friday night. Any idea where she might have gone?" "Friday was her night for the Samaritans. She did voluntary work, manning the phones." The Samaritans were in an area that was all one-way streets and cul-de-sacs, housed in 2 rooms over an empty shop that had once sold groceries. Its small team were devastated to learn about Helen Stokes. At a corner desk, a plumpish lady was sobbing uncontrollably, comforted by one of the male helpers. Mervyn Adams, the leader of the team, was a twitching, worried-looking man in a grey cardigan, looking as if he could do with some counselling himself. He removed his glasses and dabbed his eyes. "He's such a loving person. I just can't believe it." He shook his head sadly. "Who could have done such a thing?" Frost nodded sympathetically. "That's what we're trying to find out, Mr. Adams. What time did she leave here on Friday?" "Gone 1 o'clock. It was Saturday morning, actually. We were short-staffed, very busy, phones ringing constantly, so she stayed on to help us out. It was 1:15 or thereabouts before she was able to leave." They spoke to one other member of the team who had been working on the Friday night. He was a man called Scrivener, and he was furtively smoking a cigarette hidden in his cupped hand, like a man having a sly fag at a petrol dump. He kept shaking his head in disbelief. "Shocking. Bleeding shocking," he told Frost. "Helen never hurt a living soul. Spent all her spare time helping these poor sods, and this is what happens to her." Frost nodded. "You were probably the last person, apart from the killer, to see Helen alive, Mr. Scrivener." "Yes, when she came back to phone for a taxi." Frost's head jerked up. "She came back?" "Yeah, couldn't get her car to start, so she called a cab." "Mervyn never told us she came back." "Well, you didn't know. He was brewing up tea in the kitchen." "She called a cab?" "They said it would be along in 5 minutes, so she went down in the street to wait." "Did you know the cab firm?" Denton minicabs. I kept an eye on her through the window. The cab was there in a couple of minutes. She got in and off it went." Frost was almost shaking with excitement. A cab! She was picked up by a cab. They could be on the wrong track looking for someone posing as a punter. The killer could be a cab driver. Max Golding, the fat and balding proprietor of Denton minicabs, barely gave them a glance as they came in. He was chewing savagely on a soggy, unlit cheroot as he took orders from customers through his headset phone and relayed them over the radio system by means of a large, chromium-plated microphone. "A pickup outside Marks and Sparks, the railway station. Who can take?" "Right." He gave Frost and Liz a half-hearted inquiring glance before returning to the phone to take another call. Frost poked his warrant card under the man's nose, but he seemed unimpressed and began to take yet another call,
yelling with annoyance as Frost dragged the headset from his ears. "Hey! Get someone else to take over," snapped Frost. "This is a murder inquiry." Golding twisted round in his chair and yelled, "Mavis!" A fat, pudding-faced woman, a cigarette in her mouth, stuck her head through a hatch. "I'm making the tea." "Leave it and take over, the fuzzer here." She waddled in and took over the headset from him. Golding jerked a thumb at the two detectives and led them through a door. Inside was almost a clone of Frost's office. An untidy desk, spilling papers everywhere, and a half-eaten cheese roll in the filing tray. Golding swept junk from two chairs and invited them to sit as he plonked down behind the desk, leaving the door wide open so he could keep an eye on the fat woman. "So, what's this about?" "We're interested in one of your pickups early Saturday morning." Golding burrowed through the mess on his desk and pulled out a wad of papers held by a bulldog clip. "What do you want to know?" "A pickup round 1 a.m. outside Samaritan's office in Marlow Street." A stubby, nicotined finger travelled down the page. "Oh, I've got it." He looked up. "So?" "You remember the call?" "Yeah." He leaned back in his chair. "A woman said her car had broken down and asked for a cab with a woman driver." "You sent a woman driver?" "Nah, our women drivers won't work after 10 o'clock at night. I told her I'd send one of our most reliable men." His voice trailed off as he tried to hear what the fat woman was saying on the phone in the other room. "And?" prompted Frost. "I passed on the—" He suddenly leapt from his chair and dashed out to the woman. "Don't send Jack out of Mrs. Silverman, you silly cow! He's the one who ran over her pet dog when he collected it from the vets after his operation. She threatened to tear his balls out if she ever saw him again." He stamped back to his desk. "Pardon my French," he apologised. He lowered his voice. "I have to watch her all the time. She left her husband 2 months ago. For another woman." Frost kicked the door shut. "Let's concentrate on the topic in hand, shall we? Unless you'd like to finish this down at the station." Golding spread his hands in resignation. All right. "Who do you give this job to?" "Tommy Jackson." A little bell tinkled in the back of Frost's brain. "Jackson. I know that name." He snapped his fingers. "Jackson. He was the bloke that old dear reckoned had raped her. Do you know he's got form? Broke a woman passenger's jaw." Shrug. Well, it was ages ago." "She wanted someone safe and you send a bleeding jawbreaker." Well, beggars can't be choosers. 1 o'clock in the morning. It was Jack or nothing." "Nothing might have been better," said Frost grimly. Frost and the newly returned Liz Maud breezed into the interview room where a sullen, unshaven and bleary-eyed Tom Jackson greeted them with a scowl. "Not her again," he sneered at Liz Maud, who was ramming a cassette tape into the recorder. "Who am I supposed to rate this time, Lily Savage?" "Since you've asked," said Frost, sliding across a photograph of Helen Stokes. "Recognise her?" Jackson squinted at the photograph. "I'm never that hard up." "She was one of your passengers," prompted Frost. "I don't doubt it. I have hundreds of passengers. Just after 1 o'clock Saturday morning outside the Samaritans." Jackson picked up the photograph for another look. "I don't remember picking her up, and I don't remember raping her." He leant across the table. "What the hell is this all about?" Frost turned the cover of his file. "Just looking at your form sheet, Tommy. You can be quite violent with your fares, aren't you?" Jackson folded his arms. "We having this again? 3 o'clock in the morning, peeing with rain, when these two Toms flagged me down. When we get to the railway station, they've just missed the last train, so they want me to take them to Lexton. 'Don't worry about the fare, cabby,' they say. 'Whatever it is, we'll pay.' We gets there, I hold out me hand for the money, and now they tell me they've had a lousy night and they're skint. So I lock 'em in and tell 'em I'm driving them to the nearest cop shop. They then started attacking me and I had to defend myself." You did more than defend yourself, Tommy. You broke her jaw.
I didn't break it. Only cracked it. Anyway, what's all this got to do with her?
He nodded at the photograph.
She was murdered.
Jackson stared at Frost.
Murdered? She was seen getting into your cab, Tommy. The next time she was seen, the poor cow was dead.
His eyes narrowed. He jabbed a finger.
Wait a minute. Saturday morning, Samaritans. Now I remember, the cow wasn't there. She orders a cab. I flogged my guts out to get there in 10 minutes, but when I arrived, there's no sign of her. I tooted me horn a couple of times, but no one turned up, so I drove off.
Frost grimaced.
Where's your cab? Why? We'd like our forensic boys to give it a sniff.
If we find her blood all over the seat, it might refresh your memory.
You'll have to ask Max Golding where my cab is.
Why?
The cab doesn't stand idle just because I'm not driving it. When I get out, another driver gets in. Seat's red hot sometimes.
Great, thought Frost. Bloody great.
End of Disc 2. Disc 3.
Frost took one last swig from the mug of canteen tea and then committed his cigarette end to a sizzling death in the dregs. He was back in the murder incident room with the rest of his team. As you know, we've got a prime suspect. Tommy Jackson, minicab driver with form for violence. He was due to pick Helen Stokes up Saturday morning, but claimed she wasn't there when he arrived. So, did another cabbie pick her up?
He raised an inquiring eyebrow at D.C. Burton, who stood up.
I've checked all the local minicab and licensed cab firms. None of them had cars in that immediate vicinity Saturday morning, and none of them had drops anywhere near the Samaritans.
Right, said Frost.
But there's a witness at Samaritans who saw her getting into a cab, so maybe we're not looking for someone pretending to be a punter. We're looking for someone posing as a minicab driver.
He got off the chair and paced up and down, teasing out his thoughts.
A couple of years ago, we had this pirate cabbie listening into the other firm's calls on his radio so he could get to the pickup before they did. I bet my flaming pension this is what our bloke is doing. He lurks about late at night, hears a call from a tart wanting a cab, and gets there first. By the time the poor cow realises he's not taking her where she wants to go, it's too late.
Possible, acknowledged Hanlon.
It's more than possible, Arthur. I've got one of my infallible feelings. He's listening in, and if it's a call from a woman on her own, he's in there first. We're going to nail him, Arthur. We're going to nail the bastard.
How? Asked Hanlon.
We use decoys, Arthur. Lots of lovely, juicy, nubile police women as decoys. Decoys? Repeated Mullet, scrubbing away at the lens of his glasses to give himself time to think. I don't understand.
We want to lure this bastard into a trap, explained Frost.
We dress up police women as Toms, plant them in the red light district and get them to phone for cabs. We keep them under surveillance all the time. If the right cab turns up, we simply follow them to the destination and then bring them back to try again. But if it's a rogue taxi, we tail and get ready to pounce.
Mullet pinched his nose and thought for a while. For all his faults, Frost was now looking a good option. If Frost could pull this off quickly, the credit... He tugged off the cap of his Parker pen and steeled himself for the worst.
How many people would be involved? Oh, not too many. Crowds at that time of night would arouse suspicion. Say 2 girls and 6 cars to watch and tail.
Mullet jotted some figures down and winced.
And all on overtime?
Yes, agreed Frost.
The sod doesn't like raping and killing in office hours.
Mullet added up the sums again, but he couldn't make them any less.
We've got to keep costs down, When the girls book a taxi, I'm only paying for the minimum distance and no tipping. He scribbled some more figures down. 8 men, 2 women per night, maximum, and I want receipts for everything. Of course, Frost assured him, standing up quickly before the superintendent changed his mind. A chorus of wolf whistles filled the incident room. WPC Polly Fletcher, in a short, tight skirt and an even tighter sweater, swaggered into the room and gave Frost a suggestive wink. He winked back, his nose twitching at the pungent perfume she'd doused herself with. Inwardly, he was a ferment of doubts. God, what if it all goes wrong and we end up finding Polly's mutilated body dumped in a ditch somewhere? Too many people were relying on him. Reliability was not one of his assets. He was snatched out of his introspective gloom when Liz Maud, a long blonde wig concealing her dark hair, made her entrance and the wolf whistle soared. She had squeezed into figure-hugging red trousers and a clinging black sweater, over which she had draped an artificial leopard skin coat. She sauntered over to Frost. "How do I look?" "I'm selling my Viagra," said Frost. "I don't need it anymore." "Only 2 girls?" asked Hanlon. Frost nodded. "We keep this tight and simple. We don't want to flood the area with maverick toms. It might get chummy suspicious. And thanks to Mullet, we've only got 2 cars per girl, which is the absolute minimum if we're going to play it safe." Frost slid off the desk and turned to the large street map of Denton. "This is how we're going to play it." He pointed to 6 coloured pins. "There are 6 public phone boxes in the red light areas, and we're going to use them all in turn. We've got 2 pseudo-toms," he nodded to Liz and Polly, "and 4 cars. Liz and Polly, you've each got a list of cab firms to phone and destinations to be taken to. When we're all in position, you each phone the first firm on your list. When the cab turns up, surveillance car number 1 will follow you every inch of the way. At your destination, you will get out and wait until the cab drives off. Then, the tailing car will pick you up and take you back to the next phone box, and so on. We've got 2 cars on standby in case anything goes wrong. From time to time, we'll swap cars, so it won't always be the same one tailing you. But these spare cars have another important function. If at any time the tailing car sees that your cab is deviating from where we know you asked to be taken, the other cars will be called in to augment the tail. All clear up to now?" Nods and murmurs of assent. "Good. Now we need hard evidence. Unless we know where this bloke takes the girls, we've got nothing. Ideally, we want to follow you right up to the point where he drags you into his hideaway. And then, providing Mr. Mullet doesn't decide we can't do any more overtime and call us back, we burst in and rescue you." "Will we have radios?" asked Liz. Frost shook his head. "That'd be a dead giveaway. You'll each have a mobile phone. Many Toms carry them, so it won't look out of place. Any trouble, use it. I don't care if it means you blow your cover. Your safety comes first. Any more questions?" He looked round. "No? Right. Let's move." P.C. Collier yawned, knuckled his eyes. 3 in the morning. His 4th consecutive night on overtime, and it was hard to keep awake. He closed his eyes for a few seconds. Then his eyes snapped open as he became aware there was someone in the seat next to him. Jordan back with the Big Macs. "No, Jack Frost." "Sorry, sir," Collier muttered. "Must have closed my eyes for a few seconds." "About 240 bleeding seconds," said Frost. He looked through the car window. "Where is she?" Collier snatched up the night glasses and scoured the area near the phone box. He saw Polly leaning against the railings. "There, sir." And where's Jordan?" Frost asked. Before Collier could think of an excuse, Jordan appeared, clutching 2 polystyrene containers. His dismay showed when he saw Frost. "Just popped out for some refreshment, Inspector." Frost's head jerked up. "What's this?" A flare of headlights as a beige minicab marked Dave's Taxis drew up by the phone box. Collier consulted his list. "The right cab, sir." He focused the night glasses. "And the right driver. He's picked Polly up a couple of times before." "OK, son. Follow it, then take her back to the station. I'm calling it a night." He climbed out of the car, fatigue and depression weighing him down, round the corner to his own car and off to the other phone box. He had left Morgan watching Liz Maud. Halfway there when his radio squawked. "Control to Mr. Frost, urgent, come in, please." He lifted the handset. "Frost, urgent assistant required, ram raid in progress at Conway's Jewellers in the High Street. 1 officer injured, ambulance on way. We need your men now." He radioed his team as he spun the car round. "All units, abandon operation. Ram raid, Conway's Jewellers. Officer injured. Get over there now." Morgan radioed back. "Gov, there's a cab pulling up for D.I. Maud now. Can't see the registration number, but it's a woman driver. Safe to leave?" "No, not safe to bloody leave," snapped Frost. "Might be a man in drag. Follow, pick her up at the other end, then both of you get over to Conway's." Frost was the first on the scene, the other 2 cars close on his heels. A Panda car was slewed across the road. The pavement outside the jewellers sparkled with broken glass, and the alarm was shrilling. He ran over to the still shape of a uniformed officer sprawled in the gutter, his head in a puddle of blood. He knelt and touched the icy-cold chalk-white face of 20-year-old Peter Adams. "Get a blanket! Poor sod's freezing!" He moved to one side as Polly Fletcher shucked off her tart's fur coat and gently laid it over the injured constable. "Hey!" A man was running towards them from a house opposite. "It was me who phoned you all lot." "What happened?" "I heard this crash. I looked out to see this van ramming through the jeweller's window. There were 3 of them, youngish, all with balaclavas hiding their faces. They were scooping jewellery from the window when the cop drives up. He charges over and one of them welts him with this baseball bat. Poor sod went down like a stone." "Which way did they go?" asked Frost. He pointed. "Down the Bath Road, all speeding like the clappers." "What sort of van?" "Little grey delivery van." "Registration number?" The man shook his head. "Oh, couldn't get it." Frost called for all units to be on the lookout. He had no sooner clicked off when Morgan radioed through. "That van? It just passed me by the Denton roundabout, going towards Exley. Light grey 3 men. I'm in pursuit. Assistance required." "Stick to the sods like glue," said Frost, calling in all units to assist. A new sound sliced through the night. The warble of an ambulance siren. In seconds, the paramedics were easing Adams onto a stretcher. Frost detailed Polly to go with him to the hospital. As the lights of the ambulance dwindled, a Honda Accord braked to a halt outside the shop, and a short, tubby man clambered out. "The name's Conway, it's my shop," he told Collier, then surveyed the wreckage of the window with mounting indignation. "Bloody hell, look at that. The 3rd time in 4 months. I've only just had that window put in." Frost introduced himself. "You're insured, aren't you?" "Top-rate premiums. I have to pay the first £5,000 of any claim. But after that, I'm insured, yes." "Tough," said Frost. He jerked a thumb at the alarm. "Can you turn that flaming thing off?" Conway scowled. "I can turn it off if it offends your ears, Inspector. But tell me something. Where was your bloody lot when it went off?" "Our bloody lot was lying in the gutter with his skull smashed in," snapped Frost. "A wasted night, then," said Wells as they walked into the lobby. "If you overlook the poor sod in hospital and the fact that our serial killer is still on the loose, then by my lousy standards it was an unqualified success." "Anyone seen Liz?" a worried-looking Burton asked. "She's probably in the incident room," called Frost as Burton hurried off. But he found himself worrying. He couldn't recall Liz at the jewellery raid. He found Burton staring into an empty incident room.
She might have gone straight home, son, he suggested. Have you phoned her? I've phoned, she doesn't answer. The sound of raucous laughter from the rear doors heralded the return of Morgan with Jordan and Sims, escorting 3 sullen ram raiders in handcuffs. "We've got 'em, Gov," announced Morgan triumphantly. "Where's Inspector Maud?" "No idea, Gov. Isn't she here?" "You picked her up after the cab dropped her. Where did you take her?" "Oh, I didn't pick her up, Gov. I stopped following the cab when I chased after these 3. Frost couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You left her? You just flaming left her?" he repeated incredulously. "Well, I told you I was going out of the van, Gov. You didn't object." "I didn't object," exploded Frost, "because I assumed you'd already picked her up. I didn't think you'd be so stupid as to abandon her." "Sorry, Gov," mumbled Morgan. "Misunderstanding. But it was a woman driver. Inspector Maud'll be all right. She probably got them to drive her straight back home." "I phoned," Burton told him. "She doesn't answer." "Well, she could be in bed with a sleeping tablet," suggested Morgan. "She could be in bed with a flaming serial rapist," snapped Frost. "Sims, drive straight over to Inspector Maud's flat, kick the door in if necessary, but get inside, confirm she's there, and radio me immediately." "Hold on," said Burton, digging into his pocket. "No need to kick the door down." He handed a key to Sims. Frost jabbed a finger at Morgan. "Phone the minicab firm. Find out where they dropped her off." When Morgan finished his call, his expression telegraphed bad news. "They don't use women drivers at night, Gov. They sent a man, but when he got to the pickup point, there was no one there." Frost dropped in a chair and stared into space. Bloody hell. Sims radioed in. Liz wasn't in her flat. Frost poked a cigarette in his mouth and lit up. A delaying tactic to give him time to think. They hadn't the faintest idea where Maud was. So where the hell did they start looking? All they had to go on was the minicab, a black Ford. He opened the door and shouted to Bill Wells. "I want as many cars as we can get out on the road looking for this minicab. I want everyone in, off-duty men as well." "I'll need authority," said Wells. "You'll have to let Mullet know." Frost snatched up the phone. "I'm letting him know. Just do what I bloody ask." He waited for Mullet to answer. Come on, he muttered. "It's only 4 o'clock in the morning. I can't be in bed yet." At last, a disgruntled, still drowsy divisional commander answered the phone. "What are you trying to tell me?" Mullet's voice soared to a screech. Frost pulled the phone away from his ear and let the sizzle of accusation and fury crackle round the incident room. When the noise stopped for a while, he returned the phone to his ear. "Couldn't agree with you more, Super," said Frost. "Proper balls up. I presume I have your full authority to do whatever is necessary to locate and rescue Detective Sergeant Maud." "How much is this going to cost?" shrilled Mullet. "Cost?" echoed Frost incredulously. "What the hell does the cost matter? A police officer's life is at stake. I've got to get sanction from county, and the first question they will ask is how much?" £2,300, said Frost, plucking a figure from the air. "Right," said Mullet, seemingly content now that he had a figure. I'll get back to you." Frost hung up quickly. "All agreed," he told Wells. "I've got carte blanche." "But what do we do?" demanded Burton. Pray, thought Frost. They were still looking at him, thinking his silence was deep, studied thought instead of blind panic. Then suddenly he leapt to his feet. "The mobile phone! Get onto the mobile phone company! They can pinpoint the location of all the mobile phones on their network. Get onto them!" They waited impatiently as Burton made the call. Frost crushed out a barely smoked cigarette and lit up another one. At last, Burton put the phone down. "They'll get back to us. Could take a few minutes." Silence as they all stared at the phone. How long had the bastard had Liz? What was he doing to her now? Burton snatched up the phone on its first ring. "What?" He spun round to survey the large wall map of Denton behind him. "Thank you." He banged the phone down. "They've traced it." He tapped a section of the map. "The phone is somewhere in this area here, the outskirts of Denton Woods." He peered again at the map. "It's nearly all trees and scrubland, but there is one house there." His finger jabbed the position. "That's got to be it." He dashed out to the computer in control to check. "Occupants are Mr. and Mrs. Gerald Vernon," he informed them. "Vernon's had a couple of parking tickets, nothing else known." "Anyone know the house?" Frost asked. Jordan pushed forward. "I do, Inspector. We were called there a couple of months ago for a suspected burglary. Big place, double garage, massive garden." Frost chewed this over. "We'll all go. No bleeding sirens. And if he listens in to taxicab radios, he could listen into police broadcasts, so we maintain radio silence." He snatched up his scarf and wound it round his neck. "Come on, let's go." The night was dark, with clouds obscuring the moon. But as they reached the top of a slight rise, the moon found a gap in the clouds and slid through, dousing the landscape in silver and black. Before them stood the house, imposing and isolated. "Here's where we split into two groups," whispered Frost. "Take your lot round the back, Arthur. The rest you come with me." Burton grabbed Frost's arm and pointed. A gleam of light suddenly splashed out of an upstairs window. Then a figure drew the curtains together and all was black again. "The bastard's still up," whispered Frost. "So let's be extra quiet. Arthur, signal with your torch when you're in position." A cold, anxious wait until the torch flashed its signal. Frost jerked his head to the others. "Let's go." The scrunch of their running feet on the gravel drive decided him to veer across the lawn. An estate car parked by the front door was locked, but the radiator was still warm. It had been driven recently. "That's not the car that picked her up, Gov," whispered Morgan. "They'd have swapped cars," said Frost. He looked up the ivy-covered wall to the upstairs windows where the light had shone. "That's the room we try first." He looked round for Burton, who had the pneumatic battering ram. "Sod the noise, son. It's all speed from now on." He stood back to give the DC room. The noise was deafening, but at the third blow the woodwork splintered and the door crashed back. Led by Frost, they charged up the stairs. They burst into the room, curtains drawn. It was lit only by the glow from an electric fire. The smell hit Frost, cloying perfume. His torch picked out white, naked flesh as he fumbled for the light switch. On the bed, wide-eyed with terror, a naked woman. It wasn't Liz. A man, also naked, blinked at the light. "There's no money here," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'll call the police. I'm here in a minute." "They're here already," snapped Frost, flashing his warrant card. He went to the door and shouted to the others down the stairs. "She's not in here. Look everywhere." The man grabbed a dressing gun from a chair. "Police? What the devil do you want with me?" "I think you know what we want," said Frost grimly. He turned to Morgan and nodded towards the angry woman on the bed. "Is she the one who was driving the cab?" Morgan shook his head. "Don't think so, Gov. Wrong colour hair." "Could have been wearing a wig," muttered Frost. The man thrust himself between the two detectives. "Would you mind telling me what this is all about, or is it a state secret?" "You are Mr. Gerald Vernon?" "Yes." "And this lady is your wife?" A slight pause. "Yes." "One of our female officers was abducted tonight. We have reason to believe she is in this house." Vernon's stunned surprise looked genuine. "Have you been out tonight?" asked Frost. "Yes. We've been to the Coconut Grove nightclub." "What time did you get there, sir?" "About 10 o'clock. "What time did you leave?" Vernon consulted his wristwatch. "A little after 3. "Inspector!" Collier burst into the bedroom. "I found this behind the hat stand." He held aloft Liz Maud's handbag. With a bellow of rage, Burton hurled himself at Vernon, smashing him against the wall. "Where is she, you bastard? What have you done with her?" With difficulty, Frost and Collier managed to drag him off. "Downstairs!" ordered Frost. Burton scowled sullenly and slouched out. Frost turned to Vernon, who was trying to stem the flow of blood from his nose with a handkerchief. I apologise for my colleague's over-enthusiasm, sir. Like us, he's anxious to know where she is.
I don't know where she is,
hissed Vernon, each word making him wince with pain.
But you're going to pay for this. My God, how you're going to pay.
Frost waved the handbag.
When our colleague went missing, she was carrying this.
So where is she?
Why don't you ask him how the handbag came to be here, you bloody bullies?
The woman was shouting at them from the bed.
All right,
said Frost sweetly. How did the handbag come to be in your house, Mr. Vernon?
We found it in the road as we were driving home from the Coconut Grove.
What time was this? Frost sent Morgan to check with the nightclub, and then signalled for Vernon to continue.
As we turned from Bath Road into the side road, there was this car ahead of us.
What sort of car?
Darkish, nothing special. It was black,
chipped in the woman from the bed.
Black, one person driving, two in the back. She sees something in the road and yells for me to stop,
Vernon snarled.
So being a good citizen, completely unaware that I would be beaten up by the police for my trouble, I stopped and retrieved it. It was that handbag.
Frost turned to the woman on the bed.
You spotted it?
She nodded.
Yes. I wasn't actually looking, but I got the impression it had been chucked out of the car in front of us. I wanted Jerry to go after the other car and give it back. He drove ever so fast, but there was no sign of it.
I was going to drop it into the police station in the morning, said Vernon. Frost looked up as Morgan returned. I've contacted the club, Gov. They confirm Mr. Vernon didn't leave until just after 3.
Shit, said Frost.
Yes, said Vernon, smiling malevolently.
And that is exactly what you dropped yourself in, Inspector. I'm suing you and that thug and the Denton police force for malicious damage and criminal assault.
Where have I heard that before? Thought Frost mournfully. He put on his contrite look. I appreciate your feelings, sir, but it would be a nice gesture if you could overlook this error of judgment on our part. We were concerned for our colleague. Vernon shook his head.
I don't make nice gestures, officer.
Frost sighed. Fair enough, sir. If you and your lady wife would come down to the station with proofs of identity, we'll get the wheels rolling. Vernon frowned.
Proof of identity?
It's just that your good lady wife over there is a dead ringer from one of the high-class ladies of the night from the Coconut Grove. I'm sure I'm mistaken, but if she isn't your wife and your real wife finds out... Vernon's eyes blazed. You bastard. Not such a bastard, sir, smiled Frost. We'll accept your claim for damage to property. We're insured for that. And if it would spare you any embarrassment, I won't query it if you say you were alone in the house when it happened. But I want the assault accusation dropped. As Frost closed the front door behind him, the gloom returned, not helped by the weather. The black clouds had opened and rain was bucketing down. Liz Maud was out there somewhere at the mercy of the serial killer, and he didn't know what the hell to do next. Frost stared at the map. The bag with the phone was found here. A nicotine finger marked the spot. Vernon gets out, picks it up, back to the car. A quick nose in the bag and away. That should take him, what, 30 seconds? She wants him to go after the other car, so he drives like the clappers, but no sign of the other motor. Back to the map. Once you get round the bend here, the road runs straight as a die. You should be able to see the rear lights of the other car for miles. Well, what are you getting at? Asked Hanlon. The other car must have turned off down one of these side lanes. He indicated them on the map. There's a hell of a lot of them, said Burton. But if it was out of sight before Vernon turns the bend, then it's got to be one of the early ones.
Otherwise, Vernon would have seen it. This gives us 3 side road possibilities. This one, which leads to those farms and small holdings, this one, which ends up at the new estate, or this one, which goes through to the factory area. I'm going to call in all the resources from other divisions and saturate these 3 areas, house to house, the lot. We're going to have to get people out of bed and search their premises. If you knock and get no reply, smell gas and break in. I want every single property searched. It could take hours, said Burton. Then don't hang about, said Frost. He picked up the phone and told Bill Wells to call in the other divisions. Of course it's authorised by Mr. Mullet. But whatever you do, don't bloody tell him. Frost's convoy of 4 cars parked on a piece of scrubland, and they huddled round the inspector, collars up, getting drenched in the heavy rain. The area they were to search was bleak and remote, with isolated ramshackle houses and bungalows, some empty and decaying, a few small holdings, and a couple of farms struggling to survive. We look everywhere, houses, barns, sheds, the lot. When you've searched, radio Sergeant Hanlon, and he'll tick it off on the map to make sure we don't miss anywhere. Off you go, good luck. Frost began a search of some deserted farm buildings. He had a feeling of having been here before, then remembered he had, when they were searching for the missing Vicky Stewart. Rain trickling down his neck, he shone his torch through a shattered window. Broken floorboards, rotting rubbish, and the scurrying and squealing of rats. He moved away. He couldn't see their killer bringing his victims here. As they were leaving, a radio call from Jordan. "At a house now, Inspector. We've been hammering at the door, dogs barking inside, but no one answers." "Kick it in," Frost told him. "I reckon there's drugs on the premises." And then reports started coming in thick and fast, all negative. Another radio call, this time from Burton, sounding excited. "Might be onto something, Inspector. I'm at a bungalow at the foot of the rise, talking to a Mrs. Jessup. She reckons she often hears cars, very late at night, coming from that small holding on the top of the hill. She says it wakes her up as it goes past, about 2 o'clock-ish or thereabouts." "Did she hear it tonight?" "No, she took a sleeping tablet. Do you want to talk to her?" "No time for that, son. We go straight to the small holding. Meet me outside." He radioed for Morgan and Jordan to join him. They followed him up the steep hill. No chance of a stealthy approach. The whine of their engines straining up the steep, rutted slope would waken the dead. The small holding was a collection of ramshackle structures around a 2-storied house. Outside the main building, a black car was parked, and a light gleamed through curtains from a downstairs room. Surveying it, Frost felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. This was it. This was bloody it. As they squelched to a halt by the front door, Frost clambered out and ran over to the car. A black Ford, the windows wound down and the driver's door wide open. He stuck his nose inside and sniffed for traces of the pungent perfume Liz had been wearing. He rejoined the others and pounded at the front door with his fist. They waited. Nothing. Frost gave the door handle a tentative turn and the door swung open. Collier was sent round to the back, while Frost and the other 3 entered the house. They stepped into a long passage. Frost jerked a thumb to Burton and Jordan. "Upstairs." He and Morgan followed the passage to a large, stone-flagged kitchen where an Arga stove belted out heat. A long, wooden-topped table was laid out for breakfast. In front of the Arga, a grey and black tabby cat in a wicker cat basket gave them a bemused look, while her 6 tiny kittens, eyes still not open, suckled noisily. "I think we're on the wrong track, Gov," said Morgan. "You can be a bastard and still like animals," said Frost.
Hitler had a dog and Mullet's got a cat. He opened the back door to let Collier in, and they checked all the downstairs rooms. All neat and tidy. Footsteps from above as Burton and Jordan returned. "Nothing," reported Burton. "One double bed, but it hasn't been slept in." "Let's try the outbuildings," said Frost. They split up, Morgan and Frost going to a wooden-walled structure with a corrugated iron roof. Pitch dark inside, but over the drumming of the rain they could hear rustling. Someone was inside. Frost fumbled round the doorframe and found a light switch. Some 20 cats in cages blinked angrily at him. A quick look round. Metal cupboards filled with tins of cat food and bags of cat litter, nothing else. On to the next building. A windowless barn-like structure. The murmur of voices from inside. Frost gently opened the door. Inside, about halfway down, a hurricane lamp lit up 2 figures wearing oilskins, their backs to him. They were bending over something on the straw-lined floor, something whimpering in pain. He charged towards them. "Stay where you are, police!" A squeal of alarm as they spun round. 2 women looking terrified. Both were in their mid-50s, one quite fat with uncombed, dark hair, the other thin and sharp-featured. "Police!" said Frost again. Morgan flashed his warrant card in front of their faces. Another whimper from the floor. On a bed of straw, a red setter, body heaving and shaking, tongue lolling, whites of eyes showing. "She's in labour," the thin woman explained. "There's a blockage there or something. We're very worried about her." She blinked at the warrant card. "But why are you here?" Frost quickly explained about Liz. "We're searching everywhere in this area." "How dreadful!" exclaimed the fat woman. "She can't be here, Inspector. We've been here all night with the dog, and we'd have heard a car. But please search anywhere you like, anywhere." The dog whimpered again. "We've got to get to the vet," said the thin woman. "Can one of your policemen carry her to the house?" Frost nodded to Morgan, who bent and gently humped up the dog. As soon as the 2 women had left, Frost called the rest of his team over. "Get some more men in, give this place a right going over. She could be dead, so look everywhere." Burton and Collier were detailed to accompany him back to the house. "I'll keep little and large talking while you search every nook and cranny." Frost slumped down in the chair alongside the Argo. The dog, eyes closed, panted heavily in a basket at his feet. He ruffled its fur and watched the thin woman ring the vet's emergency number on a mobile phone. "He's out on another call, Mavis, a carving, but he'll phone back when he's finished, so we can take Jessie straight to his surgery. He thinks he'll have to do a cesarean." Mavis, the fat one, looked worried. "I hope the carving doesn't take long, Lily. Would you like a cup of tea, Inspector?" "If you twist my arm." Frost, loosening his scarf. She frowned at the noise of the dragged furniture coming from above. "You surely don't think she's in this house?" "Not really," smiled Frost. "But we have to search everywhere." They each took one of his offered cigarettes and lit up. "One of your neighbours mentioned she often hears your car late at night." "Oh dear," said Mavis. "I hope we don't wake her up. We're always having to dash off to the vets. We look after cats for the Cats Defence League, and animals seem to have a habit of being taken ill in the middle of the night." The cigarette was dangling from her lips, and Frost's eyes narrowed. He had seen her somewhere before. "All the doors and windows of your car were wide open as we drove up," said Frost. Mavis smiled and nodded. "One of the cats made a mess inside. I'm hoping the smell has gone by now." An explanation for everything, thought Frost. Then suddenly his spirit soared. He remembered where he had seen the fat woman before. Their mobile phone chirruped. Mavis snatched it up. "The vet," she told the thin woman. "He wants us to bring the dog over." "I'll get someone to go with you," said Frost. They protested that it wasn't necessary, but he insisted. He called Burton down and drew him to one side. Go with them to the vets. Don't let them out of your sight for a second, and bring them straight back. He saw them out to the car, then dashed back to the house, just as Detective Sergeant Hanlon had returned from searching the outhouses. "Nothing, Jack, not a sniff." "Then we'll just have to sniff a bit harder, Arthur. Bring in everyone. I want every inch searched again. She's here, alive or dead. Lizzie's here, I'm bloody certain." Hanlon stared at him. "How can you be so sure?" "The fat tart. She works in the control room of Denton minicabs. Left her old man to live with her lady lover. That'll be Skinny Lizzie. I spoke to her at Denton minicabs, told her what we were investigating, but she never said a word about it today. She was hoping I wouldn't recognise her until they got Liz out of the way." He turned to Morgan. "Could Fatty Arbuckle have been driving the cab that picked Liz up?" "Could have been, Gov." "It was her. I'd stake my last packet of fags on it. They said they would have heard a car if it came to dump Liz, but we came up the hill in 2 motors and they pretended to be taken by surprise. They knew we were They were ready for us." He rubbed his hands together briskly. "Get everyone in, Arthur. We are now going to search on the basis that Liz is definitely here, and we are definitely going to find her. Pull out cupboards, rip up floorboards, sieve the cat's flaming litter trays. Never mind the damage, just find her." He went back to the kitchen, where he swilled down his mug of tea, watched by the nursing cat with its sleeping kittens. The all-too-familiar negative reports rattled in non-stop. Nothing, nothing, nothing. His gloom returned. She was here. He knew she was here. But what was the bloody good of knowing if they couldn't find her? He stared through the window at the night sky. Already daylight was scratching at the edges. He was sucking moodily on his 5th cigarette when Hanlon returned, looking as dejected as Frost. "We've torn the place apart, Jack. She isn't here." Frost scrubbed weariness from his face with his hands. Then he stopped dead. What a bloody fool. The generator. Blank expressions. They're not on mains electricity, yet they've got a fridge, a deep freeze, lights. They must have a generator. Did anyone find it? Heads were shaken. It's got to be inside the house. He looked around. Where the hell is it? We should be able to hear it. They strained their ears. Silence broken only by the mewing of one of the kittens. Hanlon shook his head. "Can't hear anything, Jack." Morgan dropped to his knees and pressed his ear to the stone-flagged floor. "I can," he called excitedly. "It's coming from underneath." Frost joined him. He could hear it too. A low, throbbing sound, just about audible through the thick slabs. "There must be a cellar." Frost straightened up, eyes darting round the kitchen, stopping at the cat and its offspring in the basket, bang in front of the Aga. If I had a cat with kittens, I think I'd stick the basket in that recess alongside the stove, not bang in front of it where I'd have to step over it. He tugged at the blanket on which the basket rested, sliding it with the cat and kittens to one side. Bingo! The blanket had been covering a wooden trapdoor. Morgan heaved it open. Wooden steps led down to darkness. Frost fumbled and found a light switch. A large cellar stretching the length of the kitchen. In one corner, a diesel-powered generator throbbed away. Up against one wall was a single bed with a mattress and pillow. Frost sniffed the pillow. Perfume. Lizzie's perfume. She had been here on this bed. He thudded up the wooden steps and yelled to the men outside, "She's been here! Search again!" She had to be somewhere near.
The two women would have spotted the police and would have had to get Liz out of the house quickly. She had to be within walking distance, but there was no trace of her. He saw Burton's headlights and the sound of a car straining up the hill, and went into the kitchen to wait for the women. Burton was in first, carrying in an exhausted-looking red setter bitch in its basket. "Mother and kid's doing fine," he announced proudly. Behind him, the two women, beaming all over their faces, carried in a large cardboard box which they lowered gently to the floor. Frost looked down on 5 newly born red setter puppies. "Panic over," smiled Lily. "Jessie didn't need a cesarean after all." The smile abruptly froze on her face. With his foot, Frost was slowly pushing the cat's basket to one side. The two women watched as if hypnotized. "We've found the cellar," said Frost grimly. The thin woman shot a warning glance to Mavis, clicked her smile back on and turned to Burton. "Put the basket there, please." She indicated the recess by the Aga. "They must be kept warm." "I said we found the cellar," repeated Frost. The two women busied themselves putting the puppies in the basket with their mother. "There's nothing down there," said Mavis in a matter-of-fact voice. "Just a spare bed and the generator. No one could have gone down there without our knowledge." She held out a puppy to Frost. "Isn't he a little darling?" "Don't sod me about," snapped Frost. "Where is the woman police officer you brought here tonight?" Mavis gave him a look of puzzled innocence. "We haven't been out at all tonight, Inspector. How could we pick anyone up?" "You're a lying bitch," snapped Frost. The thin woman came forward. "Inspector, I appreciate you are concerned about your colleague, but you are wrong if you think she is here. We know nothing about her. I give you my word." The word of a bitch who tortures and kills, thought Frost. So where the hell is Liz? Creased his face in thought. The women would have to get her out of the house bloody quickly. Where could they hide her? And then it hit him. "Of course," he exclaimed, "a bloody course. The one place they hadn't looked. And it was so flaming obvious, the boot of the car. What a prat he was. The car doors had been left wide open, and he hadn't thought of looking in the boot." He held out his hand. "Your car keys, please." Mavis nestled the puppy next to its mother, then dug deep in her coat pocket. Frost hurried out with the keys, but he didn't like the relieved look which had returned to both the women's faces. The boot was empty. He was now at the brink of utter despair. "Did you let either of them out of your sight, even for a bloody second, when you went to the vet's with them?" "No," said Burton. Frost raised his head and swore bitterly. "Shit, shit, shit! Tell me exactly what happened." "We drove to the vet's." "Who drove?" "The skinny bird. I was in the back with Fatty and the dog. When we got to the surgery, the lights were on inside and the main door was open. It was peeing with rain, so she drove the car right up to the surgery door. I humped the dog out. The fat one came in, the vet's with me while the other woman parked the car." Frost's eyes glinted. "She parked the car? Where?" "The parking area, just round the back of the surgery." "She'd have to walk back through the peeing rain. Why didn't she leave the car where it was?" Burton frowned. "I don't know, but she was only out of my sight for a minute or so." "That's all she'd flaming well need, to drag Liz out of the boot, hide her somewhere, and when we'd left, go back and pick her up again." Burton stared at him. "Do you think she's still alive?" "I hope so, son. I bloody hope so." He quickly briefed the others, then jerked a thumb at the two women. "You're coming with us." He hustled them into his car, where they sat pressed together in the back seat, gripping the armrests tightly as Morgan drove at speed down the bumpy incline. At the vet's, now in darkness, Morgan swung the car into the rear car park and braked violently. He and Frost were out, shoulders hunched against the driving rain as the following cars skidded to a halt behind them. Frost opened the passenger door and leant in. The two women smiled up at him, seemingly not in the least concerned. "We're going to find her anyway, so why not speed things up and tell us where she is?" Mavis oozed with sincere concern. "If we knew, Inspector, don't you think we would say?" He slammed the car door and turned to meet the others. "Where do we start?" asked Burton. He surveyed the empty expanse of the car park, putting himself in the place of the skinny woman who would have been frantically searching for somewhere to hide the body in the boot. "It's got to be somewhere near." He screwed his eyes against the stinging rain, and he smiled. The skinny bitch wouldn't have had the strength nor the time to hump her far. She'd just drag Liz out of the boot and dump her. He pointed to the long, wet, straggling grass just beyond the low chain-link fence forming the perimeter of the car park. "She's over there." No one had any confidence in him anymore. They slouched across and did a half-hearted search. It was Jordan, yelling and waving frantically, who found her. "Over here!" He was shuffling off his greatcoat to cover her as they reached him. She was naked, rain-soaked, blue with cold and not moving. Her wrists and ankles were bound with wire, and a gag bit deeply into her mouth. There were angry red marks on her stomach, cigarette burns. Next to her was a plastic carrier bag. Frost dropped to his knees in the muddy ground and felt for a pulse. He could have cried with relief. She was still alive. His penknife sawed through the wire and cut the binding to the gag as Jordan swaddled her in his greatcoat. "Get her in the car," ordered Frost. "We'll take her straight to the hospital." They went in Burton's car, their clothes steaming with the heating turned up full, and Polly Fletcher vigorously massaging ice-cold limbs to try and restore the circulation. A quick look inside the carrier bag revealed Liz's clothing. A coil of wire, a roll of adhesive tape, a thin cane still wet with blood, and at the bottom of the bag, a large dildo. "Bloody hell," muttered Frost. "No wonder we thought it was a man involved." The sudden jolt of the car hitting a pothole made Liz's eyes snap open. She looked from side to side in terror. "It's all right, love," soothed Frost. "You're safe. We're taking you to hospital." She stared at him, then shook her head violently, muttering something he had to bend his head closer to hear. "What was that, love?" Her teeth were chattering as she forced the words out. "I don't want to go to hospital." WPC patted her arm. "We want the doctor to examine you." "No!" She struggled to sit up. "I don't want to go to hospital. I don't want to be examined." Near hysterical, she leant over and tried to reach the door handle. Her voice was shrill and insistent. "Stop the car! I'm not going to the hospital!" All right, murmured Frost, gently restraining her. "What do you want to do?" "I want to go back home. I want to shower. I want to get clean." "All right," nodded Frost, "if that's what you want." To Burton he said, "Take her home, son. Take her home." Frost stared out of the window. Snow, driven by a blustery wind, had coated the car park in white, and from the state of the sky there was a lot more to come down. He didn't want to venture outside in such weather, but he and Morgan had been ordered to attend the coroner's inquest, and he had been warned that the solicitor for Weaver's family was after his blood. Also, he'd been tipped off that the London press would be there in force to witness the humiliation of an officer who had hounded an innocent man to his death. He went back to his desk and yet again studied the transcript of the last interview he'd had with Weaver, the one they were going to read out in the court. Frost, showing photograph. "Recognize her? That's how we found her. Were her eyes wide open like that when you raped the poor little cow? 7 years old, you bastard, 7 years old." Weaver: "You're trying to incriminate me. You want a suspect, so you're framing me." Frost: "Did you give her one of your green sweets first? Here, little girl, have a sweetie while your nice Uncle Charlie rapes you, then chokes the bloody life out of you?" Weaver:
Sound of sobbing. You framed me. You planted that body, you... Sounds of choking, asthma attack brought on by questioning. He was aware of Morgan's chin digging into his shoulder as the DC read the transcript with him. Doesn't read too good, does it, Gov? Thanks, Taff, grunted Frost, pushing the transcript back into its folder. You've cheered me up no end. He was missing something. But what the hell was it? Frost thumbed through the file and came across Mrs. Weaver's death certificate with brief details of her illness. Something on the death certificate screamed at him. He pulled it out to study it more closely, then leant back in his chair and smiled. Who's a silly sod? Me? Answered Morgan cheerfully. Apart from you, Taff, me. I'm the silly sod. He tossed the death certificate over. Look at the address. Dean's Cottage, Fern Lane, Denton, read Morgan. He frowned. Well, he got it wrong, Gov. She lived with Weaver in Argyle Street. She only moved in with him when she was taken ill, Taff. She had her own place. I should have bloody realised. I don't see the point, said Morgan. I'll tell you the point. When I told Weaver we'd found Jenny's body, he didn't ask where. He just started screaming and shouting that we'd planted her body to frame him. Oh, perhaps I'm a bit thick, Gov. There's no perhaps about it. Weaver didn't ask where we found it because he'd assumed we'd found it where he left it. He accused us of planting it because he had left it in a place that would point the finger straight back at him. Morgan's eyes widened as the light dawned. You mean his mother's place? Yes. No wonder we found no evidence in Argyle Street. Then who moved it? I'm not sure, but I've got a bloody good idea. His windscreen wipers had cleared a hole through the snow-plastered glass. It was still snowing heavily and everything was blanketed in white. Dane's cottage, with its lopsided for sale sign, was the only property in Fern Lane. A brown estate car was parked outside. He scrunched over thick snow to the front door and knocked. The door was opened by an old woman, Mrs. Maisie White, little Charlie boy's Aunt Maisie. At first she appeared disconcerted, then resigned to see the inspector. She knew why he had come. You've left it too late. He stepped inside. The place had been stripped bare. Furniture removed, carpeting taken up, floorboards swept and scrubbed clean. She followed him as he wandered from empty room to empty room. No lampshades, no curtains, nothing. You've done a bloody good job of removing all the evidence, he told the woman. Where did you find the kid's body? It took a long time for her to reply. Upstairs, she said at last, leading him up the stairs to a curtainless room. In here. She stood by the door. This was his mother's bedroom. If she knew what her darling son had been doing... She shook her head. Charlie was her little angel. He could do no wrong. She walked into the room and shivered. That poor little mite. She closed her eyes and screwed up her face. The terrible things he'd done to her. Why did you cover up for him? Asked Frost.
I always covered up for him, she said. It would have broken his mother's heart if she knew what he was really like. There were photographs, filthy photographs. Charlie and children.
Where are they?
I burnt them.
And you sent the anonymous letter with the button?
Yes.
Now Frost was shivering as he looked round the room where Jenny and Vicky had spent the last few terrible moments of their short lives. I want you to come back to the station with me and make a statement. She shook her head firmly.
No. I told you for your own peace of mind, Inspector, but I'm not making any statements. I shall deny everything I've told you.
Why? Charlie's dead, his mother's dead.
I'm not bringing shame on the family.
Sod the family. Half an hour's time I'm going to be pilloried in the coroner's court for hounding an innocent man to death. I could be kicked out of the force. She lowered her head.
I'm sorry, Inspector. That's how it's got to be.
Frost stared at her. She raised her head and stared back, lips tight and determined. She wasn't going to change her mind. Without her statement, and without a scrap of evidence in support, he had nothing. All right, he said bitterly. He was about to go when he saw it. On the window ledge. The window ledge of the room where she had found Jenny's body. A toilet roll. He walked across and picked it up. Nearly new. Just a few sheets torn off. He smiled. On the other end, he said cheerfully. Outside it was now blowing a blizzard. He was going to be very late for the inquest. But he didn't care.